So hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to So we are back with a brand new movie on what if Naruto was unraveled the mysteries of his heritage and Ryoko, but before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin the story. Deep within the forest of the Fire Country lays a shrine that is but a simple shrine to many that pass it by. However, legend tells of how a demon was sealed there long ago after it fell from the sky. The demon before being sealed had caused much destruction to the people of the land, and many suffered under it. Thankfully there was a warrior that came to the aid of the people, riding a flying ship. The warrior's name was Yasho. He was a powerful warrior wielding his great and powerful sword. There are many who wonder where Yasho came from and wonder where he had obtained the power to fight the beast, many comparing him to the Rakuto Sennin. Yasho bested the beast and sealed it away in a cave near a shrine, and to this day the demon sleeps in its prison, as the sword remains planted in the ground watching over the demon. But the land of fire would yet face another threat of a demon, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The fox demon had appeared a few times in the country's history and in other countries, and many sought out its power. Eventually the beast was sealed away, and many put it out of their minds until the fateful night it had escaped. Many lost their lives in an attempt to contain the beast's destruction, and nothing that was done seemed to slow it down. There was however one who could do something. Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. Minato was known as the most powerful ninja in the land of fire and the ninja village of Konoha for his triumphs in the war and for taking out an entire army on his own. It was a tragedy that night as Minato gave his life to reseal the beast away, but many did not know all the events that led up to him sealing away the beast, and no one would. Breaks. The events after the sealing are another story, so let us turn our attention into the not-so-distant future. 16 years after the resealing of the Kyuubi, we find ourselves looking upon an old man with long gray hair that was tied into a low ponytail, wrinkly skin, wire-framed glasses with purple eyes, very tanned skin with an excellent mustache on his face. The man wore a kimono white top and blue hakama, which was typical of a Shinto priest. Yet if one looked carefully you would see that the man did now seem his age from the way he walked, but that's for another time. The old man climbed the stairs of his shrine and seemed to be looking round for something or someone. He took in a breath and called out Naruto. Before looking round and spotting a broom stood up next to a bucket of water and washing towel by the steps of the shrine. Now where's that boy go? He asked himself before smirking. Meanwhile in the office of the old man was a young man by the name of Uzumaki Naruto. The young Naruto was a ninja of Konoha and wished to be Hokage one day and still held a firm belief it would be possible. He remembered the day that he promised his former crush Sakura Haruna to bring back his former teammate Sasuke Uchiha. However, after their last confrontation, many would question what condition the traitorous Uchiha would come back in. Naruto was staying at the shrine for a number of reasons, the main one being that his supposed teacher Jiraiya F. the Sannin had left him to go off and do research on either his spy network or his kami-forsaken books. But Jiraiya, nicknamed Iro Sennin by Naruto, had brought the boy at the end of their first 6 months to the shrine and a house that belonged to his mother. This shocked him seeing as his teacher knew his mother and didn't tell him, but what was more shocking was that the old man was in fact his grandfather on his mother's side. When he asked the old man, Katsuhito had said he had been told nothing of the boy's birth, which struck him hard as he had always wondered about if he had any family. The knowledge that someone of his family made him distance himself from Jiraiya. Once he had gone, Naruto set up to get to know his grandfather and learn about his mother Kushina. He told him many stories about the hot-tempered girl with red hair and a round face, often compared to a tomato, before she turned anger and became the Red Demon. Naruto had also been told of his father Minato from the man, since he knew that the two had married, and the fact that Naruto was the spitting image of him. Naruto's mind had nearly broken learning the fact that his idol the fourth Hokage was the reason for his torment of being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, and the fact that the third Hokage Sarutobi had kept his family from him. Katsuhito had held the boy and simply said, "I don't care what you hold, all I care about is that you're alive and here now with your family," he said, hugging the boy. Katsuhito had however been livid at the life story of his grandson and the fact that his abilities were so hampered by those that were supposed to teach him, so had set about creating a training scheme that his parents would be proud of. Firstly, he taught Naruto restraint and discipline, which was difficult considering his upbringing, but Naruto was willing to try for his family. After that, Katsuhito made a workout plan for him based off the Kenjutsu style he knew of and the scrolls Kushina had left behind at the house. Naruto improved quickly, showing his grandfather just how much the instructors had screwed up, missing their chance with his grandson as he absorbed lessons and techniques like a sponge, and after accidentally learning the memory retention feature of the shadow clone technique, only made things that much faster. By the end of the first year, Jiraiya had reappeared to see how Naruto's training was coming and had ended up with a beating almost as bad as the one he got from Tsunade from Katsuhito for what he had kept from Naruto and the fact that he was also supposed to be his godfather. It had taken the best part of the second year for Jiraiya to get Naruto to warm up to him again, but Naruto maintained his standing until the end of the second year, where he had made Jiraiya swear never to keep anything from him again, or there would be severe consequences, which the sage had nodded to, seeing as he had seen Naruto train and knew he had become stronger. Naruto during his training asked why his grandfather's last name was Misaki when his mother's was Uzumaki. He was answered that he married into the Uzumaki but let Kushina keep her mother's name since he respected the Uzumaki, especially a particular one named Mito. Naruto had been told the history of his true homeland and had his beliefs over Konoha be shaken since he wondered if there would be a point being the Hokage of the country that had forgotten to honor its ties. Katsuhito had simply asked whether you do or don't is your choice, but remember you can either turn your back on them or show them the error of their ways and show them who Naruto Uzumaki really is. His words had Naruto back on his chosen path as he continued to train in his elements of wind, water and earth. Naruto had become proficient in learning ninjutsu from each of the three elements as well as all his other lessons at the shrine, but the time in which he had to return was coming close, so had decided to do a little bit of exploring before he went back. His grandfather had told him the legends of the cave by the shrine and Naruto had become naturally curious and after his lessons on Fuinjutsu from Jiraiya, he was curious about the seal that held the demon. Back to the present, Naruto was searching round the room for the keys and was currently checking the desk. Where did he put them? He wondered aloud as the door suddenly slammed open, making Naruto jump and spin around seeing if he had been caught. He sighed in relief seeing there was only a sleeping cat. "Did you finish cleaning, Naruto?" said the voice of his grandfather behind him, making Naruto turn to see the man that had caught him and nervously chuckle over being caught. "I bet you were looking for these," he said, reaching into his robes and pulling out a pair of keys and smiling smugly. "So that's where they were," Naruto said before covering his mouth over the slip of the tongue, "trying to sneak in while I was out, were you?" he asked knowingly, slipping the keys back into his robes. "No, I wasn't," said Naruto, pouting, reminding Katsuhito of his child and smile, seeing how like the two were even without knowing each other. "It's been the forbidden area of the Misaki shrine since the time of our ancestors. You are no exception to this rule, Naruto," the old man lectured, but smirked, getting an idea. "But you want to see what's in there, don't you?" he asked as Naruto instantly nodded. Katsuhito patted his chest. "Here they are yours if you can take them from me," he said, issuing the challenge. "Let's see how good you really are, Naruto." Naruto stood up ready to take his prize. He however was no fool. In a straight out fight his grandfather had his stamina and more experience to best him in his kenjutsu training and also in unarmed combat. However, it helped that Naruto was quick on the upkeep of his trainings and always pushing to better himself and had now began planning his moves ahead. Naruto sent out a quick jab at his grandfather which he almost didn't catch, but he did and quickly swept Naruto's feet, knocking him into the closet door, making it collapse, seeing that it was a thin door and Naruto's head poking through it. "Work harder," said Katsuhito, standing up to leave, but smiling seeing the power and speed Naruto had under his belt now, but couldn't help but feel something was off, but shrugged it off. "And remember, your chores are part of your training," he said as he left. As he left the room, Naruto got up with the closet door still around his neck but turned to the door that his grandfather had just left with the keys in his mouth. How he got them was a mystery, but ninjas were known for being tricky. "Good to see that worked. Well, time to see the so-called demon," said Naruto, pulling his head out the door and making shadow clones to take care of the cleaning. Breeks. Naruto made his way to the cave they held the sealed demon, which if he remembered was named Ryoko, odd name for a demon really, he thought to himself as he walked toward the cave opening that he had visited several times over the 2 years. It was an odd thing, out of all the places it was the cave entrance of a demon that he felt most at ease, as if someone was there with him. He remembered in the early days of when he arrived and he was told everything, this was the place he went to think and or cry. Well, he found himself recounting the events of his life too, from his childhood, his team, friends, career and the rest, and it felt good to finally just say it as he never really told anyone and he didn't tell his grandfather everything. The funny thing was when he did talk he often felt a warm sensation go through him too. No need to remember that stuff, time to see this so-called magic sword that holds the demon at bay, he thought, pulling out the keys and eventually finding the right one, opening the gate and entering the dark cavern. Inside of the cave he came to an open area which had a rock held by ropes with sutras attached to them. Looking round he wondered just how powerful the demon Ryoko was if it was held here, remembering that demons like the Biju can't be held in an item if they have the power of more than 5 tails. He then took note of a small shrine at the end of the room. "Wonder how the so-called blade looks after so many years," he said, opening the shrine and pulling out the sword. When he pulled it out he took note of the hilt as it looked to be made of pale wood and had 3 red ruby gems placed on each side. The sheath of the blade was brown and pulling out the blade with some effort revealed the metal to be practically the same color with all the rust. Odd, there's no sign of seals anywhere on the blade. Strange if it's supposed to keep a demon at bay. Bet this thing would break. Looking at it now to test such theory, he swung the blade but didn't realize before it was too late and ended up hitting the rock and the blade shattering like glass. Oh, that's not good, he thought in worry. The area began to rumble and a large stone above dropped down to the floor while the roots behind him began to recede before a crack appeared in the walls. Wonder if I can fix this before Oji-san notices, he muttered before looking back and seeing an opening in the wall, a passageway. He said, confused, walking over to it, the broken sword's hilt in his hand. Squeezing through, his foot stepped in something cold water. He muttered, pulling himself out the opening and seeing a slide going down into the earth. I know I shouldn't, but I've come this far, he said, stepping forward to slide down, but not noticing the low ceiling and banging his head and making him slip down the slide and ended up hitting the bottom head first. Ow, sigh. That's what I get, he said, picking himself up and rubbing the back of his head. Looking around, he saw it was a much larger open area than above, filled with stepping stones with water flowing between them, with an intricate pattern leading to the center which he presumed was a small pond. He walked toward the pond but felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up but failed to notice the gems on the hilt light up. When he got to the center, all he found was a giant glowing light. Didn't expect it, he said in surprise, but then again, what was he expecting? Wait, that's not all. He then took note of the mummified corpse of the demon, Ryoko, its bones bare to see with flesh still clinging to them, a red oni mask on its face, and cyan hair on its head. Strange, it has a human shape, he said, leaning over focusing on the mask, not noticing the sword hilt slip from his fingers. As it clanged on the floor, he jumped in fright, looking left and right before calming down. Geez, I'm jumping at shadows, haven't done that for a long time, he said, picking up the hilt, only to have a mummified hand grab his wrist. Naruto froze, feeling the cold fingers, and turned his head slowly to the corpse that was rising out the water, all the while several orbs of light were floating round them. Naruto freaked, trying to get out the corpse's grip, but it held tight on his wrist. Oh come on, he said in frustration, but despite his strength, the demon was stronger and pulled him to his knees before gripping his shoulder, holding him in place. He watched as it raised its right hand. Well, this isn't how I pictured my death, he thought grimly, as the demon's hand touched his face, but instead of tearing at it, the hand caressed his chin, only for the sword hilt to glow and release a surge of energy on the corpse just as it brought its face in close. The demon cried out, releasing Naruto from its grip as he scuttled back and stared at the demon's corpse in mild fright, watching as its eyes glowed yellow before running away like a madman up the path. He slid down using chakra to grip to it. When he got to the top, he pulled the broken rock back together and used a minor earth manipulation to restore it before rewriting the seal and placing his hand on it. Phew, he called as the passageway began to close. When it had fully closed, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief, still not noticing the sword's gems glowing, and didn't see as they stopped glowing too. Meanwhile, in a small pond nearby, a large single tree sitting in the middle of the pond that was a halfway to Konoha started to do something strange. The tree's leaves began emitting small strands of rainbow light that all touched the water and began reflecting it up into the sky in a beautifully show of colors that many didn't see. Only time would tell what this event meant. Breaks. The next day, Naruto was heading to the local village to pick up some groceries for him and his grandfather, but as he did, he was inspecting the blade hilt from the other night at the cave. Without the blade, the hilt was revealed to have two purple horns jutting out of the end of it. Wonder why this part seems perfectly fine after all these years, I wonder, he said, channeling chakra into the blade, and when he did, a long then blade of blue energy shot out of the end with the horns, kinda like the Raijin. Really wonder how Idate's doing, he said, remembering the brother of the Anbu. Interrogation expert Ibiki and his run-in with the second Hokage's blade, the Raijin. Still, this will pretty useful when I head back soon, wish I had longer, he muttered, thinking about returning to Konoha. It wasn't that he hated his home, he just didn't want to go back to all the glares after going so long without them. Still, it could change someday. With it, he set off to do his shopping. When he was done picking out foods that were shockingly not ramen based on his grandfather's new diet for him, seeing as he forced the lad to learn how to cook other things other than instant ramen. Even though he'd seen him eat a fair few while he was there. He eventually came to a large lake and decided to have a small lie down since he hadn't had the chance to really relax from his training and chores for a while. As he lied down, he felt his eyes grow heavy and began remembering the events at the cage and the demon Ryoko. He kept remembering those glowing yellow eyes, but still was curious of its actions when it caressed his face. The action seemed to be an action of caring, he'd seen it with couples at times. Breaks. A few hours later, Naruto woke up groggy and noticed that it was nighttime. Damn, slept too long. Oji-san will have me for this, he said before hearing the sound of a bell. He looked round and for the sound of the bell, but couldn't find it, so went to pick up his groceries before hearing the bell again. He looked back to see the cat that stayed at the shrine. Oh, it's you, what are you doing here? He said, ushering the cat over as he liked cats, even Tora, despite the amount of scratching he got from it. The cat meowed and ran toward him, but as Naruto bent down to pick it up, it vanished into thin air. Naruto blinked at this. "Okay Kai," he said, releasing a pulse of chakra. "Not Genjutsu, maybe I slept the wrong way," he summarized before the sound of the bell echoed over again. Turning round, he spotted a woman in a tree swinging hours legs back and forth. Naruto was now on edge as he felt the woman's power, and it was high, but also incredibly beautiful and strong. Beautiful women were dangerous. The woman wore a pink dress that was over a green kimono top that seemed to be tailored for battle, but also could be wore anywhere else. Her hair was unique as it spiked backwards and was cyan in color. Her ears were also unique, being elongate and rounded at the end, but her face was beautiful, and her yellow eyes that seemed to be slitted like a cat attracted him to her a little. He then took note that the sound of jingling was coming from the bells in her left hand, which she held to her face, before throwing it to Naruto, who caught them, keeping his eyes on the woman in either caution or in admiration of her looks. He wasn't sure. "Ryoko," she said softly but loud enough for him to hear, making Naruto go wide-eyed. "That's my name," she smiled. "Crap, well, like Hiro-sen once said, if you're gonna die, do it in the presence of a beautiful woman. He's got to be a masochist." His thoughts wandered before shaking his head. "So you're," he gulped nervously before several balls of orange light appeared around her. "You're the demon from the cave, aren't you?" he asked, slightly hoping she said no. Ryoko hugged herself, hearing that. "It was so dark and cold in there," she said, with Naruto hearing genuine pain in her voice. "700 years have passed since I was trapped in that cave, but you know your own pain, don't you, Naruto?" She said the last part without him hearing. So Naruto began getting into a battle stance, secretly regretting not having his ninja tools on him, as he only used them near the temple training grounds. "You came back for revenge, right?" he asked. "Right," she answered back with a straight face. "You do remember that I'm not the guy Yasho who sealed you, right?" he asked, hoping to not fight Ryoko. "I don't care," was her response as the orbs of light gathered to her hand, forming a larger ball of orange light. She then gripped it, turning it into a blade of energy. "I just need to let out my anger now," she said as she charged forth at Naruto. "Fuck," was it he could mutter as he jumped away as Ryoko slammed the blade on the ground, forming a crater. "Oh goody botch and level strength," was his thoughts as he said of running, as Ryoko then threw the beam sword at him, which exploded on contact with the ground. "And she has explosive capabilities, what's next?" he said as he began running across the lake. Ryoko, however, caught up with him, easy floating above the water. "What's the matter, Naruto?" she said as Naruto ducked under her swing and flipped away, going through hand signs. "Futen. To top it," he called, releasing a powerful gust of wind which she simply cut through with her beam sword. "Well, that was actually impressive," he muttered before shaking his head. "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he called, creating several clones to get a grasp of her moves, using the feedback function. "Men charge," he called, as they all ran forward to the smiling Ryoko. "Ah, so many Narutos to play with. You really know what a girl wants," she said, shooting a ball of energy at the clones, taking out 8 out of the 100. But the real Naruto, he was hiding, trying to think up a plan as he felt the memories of the destroyed clones hit him, revealing that Ryoko was no slouch to unarmed combat too, and plenty fast as well as strong, but also seemed to be able to teleport around the clones while destroying them, which made him panicky. "Well, she's super strong, fast, can fly, make beam swords and energy blasts, both of which were orange, which I approve of. Teleport, what can't this woman too?" he thought as he got the memory of the last clones. "Great, well at least I can be pretty stealthy when I need to be," he said as he heard Ryoko's voice call Naruto, which echoed all around the trees. "Where is she?" he asked himself, trying to sense her. "Naruto." The voice echoed again, reminding Naruto of his fight with Zabuza, on edge and not knowing where he was, only for him to end up. "Hello there," said Ryoko behind him, her head sticking out of the tree while the rest of her was inside it. He was about to get up, but then found an energy blade close to his neck. Now we can't have you run off again. You and I are gonna spend some quality time together, Naruto," she said in a sultry voice, making him blush. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Maybe I should stun. Oh, I am not Hiro-sen, even if the girl is really hot behind me. Wait, I know what to do, he thought to himself, raising his arm. "Hey, look over there," he shouted. "I should be ashamed of myself for that one. There's no way that would work." Imagine his surprise as the blade disappeared and he saw her face looking to where he pointed. What is it?" she asked, giddy. Naruto blinked in surprise before creating a clone and switching fast, running away as fast as his legs could carry him while going unheard. "So you gonna tell me what I'm looking for?" she asked, staring down at the clone. He rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. "Well, you see, I needed a distraction," he replied honestly. "What for?" she asked, curious. "This boom," he said, exploding. Up ahead, Naruto felt the shockwave from the Bunshin Daibakuha. "Think I overdid it," he muttered, seeing the fire from the explosion, and sighed in relief before squinting his eyes and paling. Walking through the middle of the fire was Ryoko, and he could tell she was mad from the look on her face, like Sakura was a few years ago when he tried to talk to her. "Hey, that's no way to treat a lady," she shouted as she teleported, and Naruto was too stuck to do anything until she reappeared by the lake to check her appearance, and seeing her face and hair slightly messed up, safe, he thought, making his getaway. "Breeks. As he kept running, Naruto was thinking of what the hell he could do to incapacitate Ryoko, seeing as he probably wouldn't be able to kill her, not that he wanted to. He then remembered something important when she focused her power. The gems on her wrist were glowing. The gems look the same as the one on the sword, plus the legend says something about 3 gems of power. So if I take it out I might pull through this. That's it. He said, running before running into something soft knocking him onto his butt, and looked up to see Ryoko. You done running, sweetie pie? She asked, smirking as she saw the blush on his face. He then remembered the one piece of equipment he had on him and reached into his back pocket to get it. How could I forget I had this? There's nothing you can use that will be able to beat me, said Ryoko, forming another beam sword. And don't worry, it won't hurt too much, she said, swinging down. However, her sword didn't hit him, but instead was blocked by his own blue beam sword. Sorry, I don't like pain, said Naruto with a small grin. That's not playing fair, Naruto, said Ryoko as he continued to grin. Ninjas don't play fair, he said, pushing her away before the two engaged in a small sword fight, Ryoko struggling against Naruto's style, as she usually went for a brute strength approach. Naruto himself was feeling the pain of her strikes in his arms from when they clashed, but as the two came to clash once more, Naruto got a good look at her face and saw it pain and loneliness. He then felt it hit him. She's like me, he thought, unintentionally pushing back less and letting her blade come closer. Seeing this alarmed her as she curved her blade out of the way of him, but the sword in his hand seemed to act on his own and moved his arm, so he cubic off her hand just under the wrist where the gem was. The gem landed on the ground and exploded, and the two were left staring at what had just happened. Eventually he stood up, deactivating the sword and looking at it for a couple seconds before putting back in his pocket. Ryoko sighed sadly. Oh well, another battle lost, she said to herself. My miserable lot, she muttered, raising her handless arm to her head, noticing she was missing Adara. I'm sorry about the hand, the sword has a mind of its own, said Naruto, apologizing a little sheepish as he hadn't mean to cut off her hand. She just smiled and charged energy into her remaining index finger. She covered the stump and swept her hand along it, and as if by magic her hand was regrown. See? She said. She smiled, showing both her hands. Naruto was surprised and gave her applause on her healing abilities that rivaled his own. She gave a bow farewell, she said, phasing into the ground, leaving Naruto on his own. Breeks. What a night, muttered Naruto at home after picking up the groceries. Good thing it was a cold night. After putting them away he went up to his room, which was simple and had a desk, wardrobe, and bed. He sighed, seeing as the room was bigger than his apartment in Konoha. He unzipped his black and orange jacket, leaving him in just a black shirt before sitting on his bed and taking out the sword again. This blade, it's powerful if it was able to cut through Ryoko so easily. Wonder what happened to her. She was pretty cute, but her eyes held a tortured past like Gaara, Haku and me. Kinda hope we can meet again, he said to himself, lying back on the bed. Although he felt that the bed was a little lumpy and seemed to be squirming under the sheets, I really Iro Senin hasn't ended up sleeping in my room again, he sighed, pulling back the bedsheet. Imagine his surprise when he saw a familiar head of cyan hair sleeping in his bed. She turned over from her side, revealing her open top, showing Naruto she went braless as he could see her partially bare right breast. Feeling the bed sheets uncovered woke up the sleeping Ryoko, who turned her gaze to him. Welcome home, Naruto, she said softly, making Naruto step away from the bed in surprise at finding a hot girl in his bed. You have got to be kidding. Breeks, going to continue cause I really want to. Outside the planet atmosphere of the planet Naruto was on was a spaceship of alien origin. It was kind of weird since the ship itself was made out of wood. Inside the ship, the main bridge, from what it looked like, opened up to show a woman in royal-looking garments. The two pillars of logs beside the entrance turn and show that both of them had kanji on them, the left one being blue and the right being red. All systems activated, unlock the time freeze now. All systems synchronized to breach standard time, said one of the pillar logs. Once that was said, the seemingly sleeping beauty opened her eyes to show them to be a reddish-pink color. Her long purple hair covered by the hood of her royal robes. From what one could tell, she was neither pale or tanned in color of skin, just fair. She stepped out of her cryogenic sleep area and looked up to see they were close to a planet. What planet is this? She asked her guardian logs in her sophisticated-sounding voice. Colonized planet number 0315 Earth, answered the deeper-voiced log. Then this must be where my Ani-sama, Yasho, is, she summarized, sounding relieved, suggesting she's been looking for him. No, all we detect so far is Ryoko, said the deeper-voiced log. Not that woman. The woman scowled, showing her distaste for the demon. What does this mean? She asked. We have yet to detect Yasho's ship, but he was in pursuit of Ryoko. Logically it would follow, said the log, but was cut off. That woman and Ryooki must be caught to be trialed formally at planet Jurai as soon as possible, said the woman firmly. Aika-sama, said one of the logs, catching the now named Aika's attention as a profile of Ryoko came up on the monitor with her picture smiling. Unfortunately all of Ryoko's crimes are to be erased by Galaxy Police by statute of limitations at Galaxy Time. 00432 or in other words, 5 seconds. But that said a counter began counting down the final seconds and Aika looking irritated by this fact as the counter hit 0. A beep tone was heard confirming the time. As of this moment the statute of limitations has taken effect and Ryoko's Galaxy Wanted file has been destroyed, informed the deep-voiced log. Destroyed, said Aika, confused and angered. Answer me, why is this? She demanded, seeing she had a deep loathing of Ryoko. The statute of limitations is based on decisions made by the Holy Council on Jurai, the log began to explain. That is not what I have asked for. I am asking why the woman is not being sought for all eternity, she asked her logs. The statute of limitations is based on decisions made by the Holy Council on Jurai, the log repeated. Never mind, the only clue left is that woman. We must capture her at any cost, she said, not letting the woman go. But the statute of limitations, the log tried to point out. This is an order, we will think of a reason, she told them, her voice leaving no room for argument. Yes ma'am, the other log replied. That's more like it. Now prepare for descent, she said, knowing what she was doing was for the better. Anti-air guard, storming level 4, said one of the logs. Be well, Ani-sama, please be well, Aika said softly, hoping for her brother's health. Breeks. Back in the room with Naruto and Ryoko. Ryoko, can you please tell me why you're in my bed? She got up from the bed, buttoning back her clothing, and held out her hand. No, I want your balls please, she asked nicely. Naruto, quick as you can blink, had it back to the wall, or my kin to need these, he said, covering his gentleman's area. This caused Ryoko's face to scrunch up in irritation. You numbskull, I meant the 3 gems on your sword, she said, annoyed as Naruto went. Oh, that's more reasonable. Phew, he said, relieved. But we can get to that sort of thing later, but I need those gems or I can't control Ryoki, she told him, smirking, seeing his face flush. He's fun to tease, and just look at him, she thought to herself, admiring his six-pack over the shirt. Ryoki? He questioned. Don't tell me you don't know what that is, she said, sighing. It's the other demon from the legend, you dimwit, she said, answering his question. I'd like to point out that legend is hundreds of years old and I only heard about it a couple of years ago, so forgive my arrogance, he pointed out, pulling out the sword. So if I give you these gems the other demon will come back? He asked her as she walked toward him. No ifs about it, give them to me, she said, crossing her arms. No, he said, deadpan, besides you were tearing up the land on your own. Fine, so I don't think I need another demon here, would be good, 2's company, 3's a crowd, he said. She grabbed him by his collar. Are you sure? The one approaching us right now is even worse, she said to him, her face very close to his. What do you mean? He questioned the woman. Never mind, just give me the sword, she said, making a grab, but found she wasn't holding him anymore and he was behind her in a flash. No way, you're not getting this, he said before being tackled to the bed or straddling him. I like this position, she muttered, making him blush, and seeing her chance grabbed the sword from his hand. She giggled, holding it right before it glowed and electrocuted her, blasting her into the door. Damn it, she said. Naruto got up and grabbed the sword, looking down at the woman. Looks like you can't touch this thing, can you? You okay by the way? He asked, smirking down but a little worried as he didn't like to see people get hurt. Ryoko looked up and pouted, knowing he had the upper hand. No, and I'm fine, was her answer. Oh Naruto, be quiet, you're disturbing my writing, said Jiraiya from the bottom of the stairs. Naruto had eventually allowed him to stay here and was getting ready to leave with Naruto back to Konoha. However, he wanted to get his next chapter down before he went back, and Naruto banging around in his room wasn't helping. He decided to see what was going on and noticed his door was open slightly. Sneaking a glance, he inwardly cheered as Naruto looked to be giving commands to a cyan-haired beauty. About time too with his looks, it's surprising no one was interested in him, and now he gone and brought back a real beauty. I'm so proud, and as a sign of respect this event will be researched for further use, but I need a better viewpoint, he thought, grinning and walking away to get his notebook. Ryoko looked up, almost looking like she was going to cry. Please, I'm begging you, she said, grabbing the bottom of his black shirt. Never liking to see girls cry, Naruto crouched down. Hey, don't cry, just tell me what's coming, Ryoko, he asked, his voice soft. She turned her head. A devil, she's like a devil, she grabbed his shoulder and drew circles into his chest with her finger. She's so dangerous and mean, she'll fire at you without giving you a teeny-weeny little chance to explain, she said cutely. Breeks. Aika sneezed and looked left and right to see if she could find someone talking about her. Seeing there was none, she turned her attention back to the monitor. Begin the capture process as soon as we arrive, and you must remain from firing, she ordered her logs. Yes ma'am, said the younger-voiced log. The monitor began bringing up close-ups of the planet until you could see Naruto's house. We will soon arrive at our destination, said the deeper-voiced log to his charge. Breeks. Are you sure this person can't be just Doc too? I really don't want to start any unnecessary fight anymore, Naruto asked Ryoko, hoping to avoid another dangerous confrontation. Ryoko just shook her hair at him. Is she really that bad? Ryoko looked up at him with her big eyes. Yes, listen to me, we need to wake up Ryooki now, she told him, still using her sweet voice. So you're going to summon it fight, right? He asked, a little worried, having a demon and unknown force attack each other, especially with his mother's house at Rick and his grandfather too. No, we'll run, she answered, simply making Naruto sigh in relief. Outside the window, sitting on a tree branch, was Jiraiya with his notepad scribbling away. I may respect his privacy, but this is too good a chance to miss seeing my godson become a man. Especially with this girl, where did he find such a woman? This will be my next greatest work, he said, giggling away. His thoughts were interrupted by a strange sound and looked up. The sight of what looked to be wooden-like spaceship made his jaw drop. Wah wah, what the hell is this? He exclaimed. The ship hovered over the home, shooting out searchlights. Ryoko-san, come out. Ordered a voice from the ship. Ryoko phased her body halfway through the wall, shocking Jiraiya and making him fall from the tree. What the shit, I knew it, she's already here, she said, and Naruto opened the window and poked his head and went wide-eyed, seeing Aika's ship. Ryoko-san, you must come out. I know that you are in there, you cannot get away from me now, Aika commanded before looking over to one of her logs. Are you sure this is on? She whispered. Yes ma'am, it confirmed for her. Well then, what is she doing? She asked herself. Oh, never mind, I want you to fire a warning shot nearby, she told her guardians. I thought we were to refrain from firing, pointed out to Aika, who blushed, being caught contradicting herself. That's an order, she said plainly. On the outside of the ship, 2 cut-looking bamboos and 6 long sticks between them appeared on the bottom of the ship. The small cannon shot out an energy shot that hit close to the clan home, making a large explosion and shockwave breaking the windows of the home. Naruto shielded himself and Ryoko from the blasts, holding her close, only noticing his position once the shockwave had passed. You see, she said, smiling at him as he nodded and backed away slowly, him muttering sorry. Yes, but what should we do, Ryoko? He asked worriedly. She put on a mischievous smile for a second before looking at him. Well, for starters, why don't you point the sword toward me and pray to have the jewels returned to me, she explained to him as he nodded. That's all I have to do, okay then, he said, pointing the sword and closing his eyes to pray. Ryoko held out her hands to the sword, closing her eyes too. On the sword, the top red gem began to glow before appearing on Ryoko's left wrist. Both then opened their eyes to see if it had worked, but Ryoko looked surprised at something looking at both her wrists. What's going on? You only gave me one, she said, pointing to said gem. That's right, he said, deadpan, knowing people can be tricky like himself at times. Ryoko laughed nervously at being caught before muttering, well, it'll do. She lifted the gem into the air, making it glow before crossing her arm over the other, then held out her hands as if she was holding something. Come Ryooki, she muttered, awakened. She called as deep in the lake close by the cave, there were ripples in the water. Come, she called. But the cry Ryooki emerged from the lake, shooting into the sky. Back on Aika's ship, alarms went off as another ship was detected. It's Ryooki, reported one of the logs. There you are, you heinous criminal battleship, said Aika with anger laced in her voice. Attack the ship, fire now, she ordered as the underside of her ship began firing of the other as it hovered over the clan home surrounding in some sort of field. What the heck is going on, Ryoko? Asked a slightly panicking Naruto, not liking how close the space battle was to his home. Let's go, Naruto, she said happily as the gravity was turned off and the 2 of them were pulled up into the ship, and as they were, the house vanished into thin air. Appearing on the main bridge, Ryoko looked toward the many crystals in it. Okay Ryooki, let's make out, get away, she said with a smirk as the ship blasted away with a very animal-like call, dodging blasts from Aika's ship. Stretching her arms behind her, Ryoko sighed happily. Yes, this is the feeling, it's good to be able to move freely, she said as Naruto looked over the flattened version of his home. It's alright, isn't it, Ryoko? He asked. She smiled down at him. It's fine, I just shrunk it, so don't worry, Naruto. She knew the house, one of the few things Naruto actually had of his mother. Naruto looked carefully and spotted a sight that made him sigh in slight frustration, which was Jiraiya flattened with his notepad by him. Really have to anti-pervert the house, thought he would have learned his lesson by now, he muttered as a shot hit the ship. Ryoko looked angry at this. Damn it, you annoying little, she mentally commanded Ryooki to attack as a laser fired from the bottom spike of the ship towards Aika's, hitting it. Launch counterattack, commanded Aika as she steadied herself from the hit. Ryoko meanwhile had a smirk on her face before she clutched her head in pain as Ryooki on the outside became surrounded by small bamboo shoots. Inside, Ryoko screamed as she felt herself being constricted by the bamboo shoots. She cannot escape, as said Aika. Azaka, Kamadik, go and capture her, she ordered to her logs. Yes ma'am, they said, teleporting away. Ryoko, what's going on? Asked Naruto, concerned for the girl he just met, about to help her stay back. She cried as he was pushed away as the 2 logs appeared on the ship. As she spotted the 2, she managed to mutter Jirai guardians before being swallowed by one of the logs. Ryoko. Naruto cried seeing this, but then felt something heading toward him, a large log with giant red kanji on it. What on in his hesitation, the log managed to swallow him, as it had Ryoko, his vision going dark as it did so. Breaks. Later, high above the Earth's atmosphere on Aika's wooden ship now holding Ryoko, Aika was sipping tea calmly as Ryoko hung captured upside down. "It's been a while, hasn't it, Ryoko-san? I've been looking for you for some time," she said with a small smile. Ryoko didn't respond to Aika. "May I ask you one question? Why did that earthling have this sword with him?" she asked, holding the wooden sword that she had taken from Naruto. Ryoko remained silent. "Answer me," said Aika, getting frustrated, but Ryoko just smirked at her. Seeing this, Aika's eye twitch turned to Azaka and Kamadik, sending them a silent order. Following the order, the two began sending blasts of electricity into Ryoko, but instead of screaming of pain, they got something along the lines of "Stop, stop. I'm coming, she shouted in pleasure. "Enough," cried Aika with a small blush, hearing Ryoko's response to torture. "This seems to have an opposite effect on you. You're behaving like what's it called?" she asked, forgetting the term. "A masochist," answered Azaka. "Ah yes, that's what they're called," she accepted the response from her guardian. "Actually, Oju-chan, I'm more of a sadist," corrected Ryoko to the purple-haired princess. I'm sorry." She stopped, realizing who she was apologizing to. "Oh, never mind, that's completely irrelevant," she said as Ryoko smirked, as she always found it fun teasing the girl. "I'll ask you again. Why did that youngin have this sword?" she asked, walking closer the woman. Ryoko turned to Aika. "You bonehead," she called the woman Aika responded confused. "Don't you feel it in his blood?" she questioned. "You're not answering my question," said Aika in irritation, "because the sword is his," Ryoko elaborated to the princess. However, this wasn't the response she wanted. "Don't be ridiculous. You know this sword belongs to my Ani-sama. Now where is he? Where is my Ani-sama Yasho?" she asked, slightly loosening her calm front. "Half-brother, you mean," said Ryoko with a small smile. "You came all this way just to look for him?" Aika's face had puffed up at the audacity of the woman. "Things must be dull on planet Jurai. You royal types must be bored," she taunted, which was a bad idea. "Silence, criminal, how dare you," she said, scowling at Ryoko. Well, said Ryoko, smirking at getting under her skin. "My Ani-sama's disappearance all started because of you," she accused. "So that's how it happened," said Ryoko, acting like she forgot. At her patience ends, Aika pushed the sword's hilt into Ryoko, causing her to cry out in pain as the sword shocked her. "Okay, stop. Please, you can stop now," she pleaded as Aika looked down at her, slightly enjoying the pain she was giving her. "Now answer me," she said, getting her emotions under control. "Naruto would probably know more about Yasho than I do," she offered as she was still smoking from the shock. "The Earthman?" Aika asked curiously. "Yeah," Ryoko responded. Before she could send for the boy, two black spheres floated down in front of her. "Aika-sama, it's time for bed," it informed her. "Later, I am busy, now go away." She tried to wave it off. "I cannot allow that. The queen has given me strict orders," was its argument, and hearing this, Aika knew not to disobey. "Oh, very well. And take her off to jail," she ordered. "Good night, Oju-chan," teased Ryoko, liking to have the last word. Aika huffed at this. "Aika-sama, this way," the sphere said, leading the girl away to her sleeping quarters. "Spreeks. What happened and what is this place?" asked Naruto, waking up and getting to his feet and looking round to see that he was surrounded by a ring of trees, making it look like a mock cage. "Well, this is something. Get captured by a log and then get put in an easily escapable cage. Hope Ryoko is okay. Hey Ryoko, can you hear me?" he shouted, attempting to walk out his cage before there was a noise and the trees closed in, blocking his escape and holding him before he backed off. "Yes, it is a real cave, then good thing not many can hold me," he grinned, running for an opening but was caught by the trees each time. "Great, beaten by a tree. Ironic thinking about it," he muttered, unaware that someone was watching him. "No choice then, sorry tree," he said, holding out his hand and channeling chakra for a Rasengan and forming one in about 2 seconds without the aid of clones. It was this he was proud of. However, before he thrust his technique, a voice called out, "What are you doing, Ani-chan?" This broke his concentration of the technique. Naruto looked to see a young girl in front of him looking half his age. Blue-haired, done up in long pigtails that were tied in cute green ball elastic bands, big cute pink eyes, and fair-toned skin with the 2 small green triangles on her forehead. Her dress was a green-like kimono with a bright green bow on the back, but it was cut off at the sleeves. Under that was a long-sleeved pink shirt that closed in on her wrists, and pink pants with brown slipper-like shoes that red bows on them. Who are you?" asked Naruto confusedly. "My name is Sasami," she answered cutely. "Sasami, do you mind telling me what you're doing here, Sasami-chan?" he said, hoping to get some answers as screaming at her wouldn't help at all, and he always tried to be nice to girls. "Silly, I'm just looking around this ship hoping to find something to do," she answered. "Really, you wouldn't happen to be from another planet, would you?" he asked as she nodded. I come from planet Jurai, she answered holding a weasel-like animal in her arms. Then what were those huge logs from before, he asked a little curious. She giggled, having the two guardians called logs, they're not really logs. There are guardians, our servants, she informed him as he nodded. I see I'm going need a lot of Raymond after all this. First Ryoko, then this other girl, I'm on what is most likely a spaceship and am more than likely the first to meet a race from another planet. I really can't have a normal adventure, can I? He thought to himself. Ani-chan, what's your name, she asked, wondering who this blonde-haired man was. Oh sorry, where are my manners, he said, kneeling down to her level. My name is Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. Nice to meet you, Sasami-chan, he said politely. His grandfather had hammered in etiquette lessons from day one. She smiled as the boy seemed really nice before pulling out an odd wooden device. Will you play with me? She asked before activating the device, making the trees part, allowing Naruto escape. Once out, Naruto looked over Sasami. You know, I didn't expect an alien race to look so much like we do, he commented before taking note of the weasel. He muttered to himself, making the girl blush, thinking he was commenting on her. The weasel-like animal shot out a long tongue, licking him in the face, making his chuckle as he always loved the affection that animal gave. He petted it on the head before noticing Sasami's device. That looks like my sword, he said out loud, moving his hand to his back pocket so he could compare, only to find it wasn't there anymore. Damn, it's gone, he said. What's wrong, asked Sasami, curious. I had a sword similar to that thing you have there, knew I should have sealed it, he muttered before looking over at Sasami, who had a cute expression on. Hey Sasami-chan, do you think you could help me? He asked, kneeling down to her level again. Do you think you could help me find my sword, friend, and take me home? I don't really know how I ended up in this situation, he asked, rubbing the back of his head. She put on a thinking expression before looking back at him with a smile. Well, will you do me a favor too? She asked back, in a voice that Naruto couldn't say no to, even if he wasn't in his current predicament. Breeks. In her sleeping quarters, Aika brushed absently at her hair as she thought about the situation up to now. She sighed and turned on a holographic message machine she kept since her Ani-sama left. When it turned on, it showed a young man with long black hair, tanned skin, and purple eyes wearing royal Jurain clothing. My darling Aika, I must leave here tomorrow morning. To do battle with a rampaging criminal, but not to worry. I will defeat this criminal and return, and when I come back, she turned off the message. And when you come back, I was to become your bride, but you never returned. Aika finished what the message Yasha would have said as his eyes wavered in remembrance. She then looked at the tenchi can she had on the table nearby and picked it up. Ani-sama, she whispered sadly to herself as tears trailed down her face. As Aika turned in for the night, Naruto and Sasami had just arrived near her sleeping quarters. The two of them watched as the lights turned off, signaling Aika going to sleep. My sister's room is right over there. She's asleep now, so you know what to do, she said quietly but stifling a giggle. Get help finding the sword, Ryoko, and getting home, while getting the chance to pull a prank after a very long time. This'll be worth it, he thought to himself, grinning. So I get in and grab her head ornament? He asked as she nodded. That's right, she answered as he got up and cracked his neck and fingers. Kami, I've wanted to pull a prank for so long, he said, running across the field, barely making a sound as he went. As he got close, all Naruto could think was, I can't believe there are no patrols here, not that I'm complaining, but really if this was a kidnap mission, it would be easy pickings, he thought, climbing the building with his chakra. When he got to Aika's sleeping quarters, he found her sleeping silently. She pretty now for the head ornament, he thought, going over to the bed silently. Looking at her head, he tried to think how to get it off him. Can't substitute without waking her, looks fixed onto her head, and I doubt she's a heavy sleeper like me. Oh well, guess this will have to do. He unsealed the only piece of equipment he always had, an ink pot and brush. Going over and with expert skill he began drawing on her face, giving her a mustache and beard, swirl marks on each cheek, a black monocle on her right eye, and writing UNN above her left eye to mark his work. Sealing the brush away, he resisted to laugh before taking note of what she was holding. My sword, so she had it. Well, I better get that first, he thought, reaching over to grab the hilt, but found the sleeping girl had a hard grip. Getting into a better position, he climbed onto the bed and positioned himself over. Please, for the love of Kami, don't wake up, he prayed slightly for his health. Ani-sama, she muttered as Naruto made to grab the sword again and pulled at it, but she held strong, and her eyes started fluttering open. Huh? She muttered, opening her eyes, seeing Naruto's face that looked a little scared. Whymph? Her cry was stopped by Naruto covering her mouth. This isn't what it looks like, he said with a straight face before jumping off the bed, sword in hand, just in time before she was able to kick him off. Azaka, Kamadik, she called as the two guardians appeared while Naruto sped off. I want you to put that scoundrel to death, pointing in the direction of the fleeing Naruto. She was a little surprised by his speed. Oh my, how quickly he runs, she muttered as the guardians began chanting, here we come, while firing at Naruto, who dodged the blasts. Running towards Sasami, Naruto scooped her up carrying her bridal style. "We're out of here, Sasami-chan," he said as she squealed in excitement. Naruto continued to weaving in and out of the Guardian's blast. "Sasami-chan, can't you do anything about those two?" he asked. "They're my one-chans, there's nothing I can do," she said happily. "Terrific," he muttered before coming to a fork in the road. "Ani-chan, this way," she pointed as Naruto just ran hoping to save his and the girl's skin. "In there, hurry," she said pointing to a hollow tree which he jumped inside to find a hole that was inside, all the while Sasami laughing at the fun she was having. "Yeah, it's gonna take a lot of Raymond after tonight," he thought falling down the hole. "Spreeks." Ryoko yawned inside of her cell. She hoped Naruto would get here soon, knowing just how crafty the boy was. As luck would have it, Naruto popped up from the ground nearby the cage. "Well, look who's here," she muttered happily seeing the blonde. "Now where are we?" Naruto asked himself, his back turned to the cage with Ryoko. "Yoo-hoo, yoo-hoo, yoo-hoo," she shouted out to him waving. "Ryoko-chan, thank Kami," he said happily while she smirked hearing the suffix. "Great timing," she said ready to bust out of her current position. "You okay in there, Ryoko?" he then asked getting a slight pout from the woman. "Yeah, never better, but would you drop the chan?" she questioned as Naruto nervously looked away. "Or maybe we should get you out of there first," hoping to drop the subject. "In that case, if I had my gems I could get out of here," she suggested. "No, I think I have an idea to get you out though, I actually forgot about it before," he said, putting his hands into the snake sign and channeling his chakra, unknowingly making the Tenchi-ken glow. Almost immediately the tree branches opened up for Ryoko. "What did you do?" she asked a little impressed. "I've been practicing Mokutener control of plant life. I'm surprised it worked so well," he said, touching the wood of the cage. Nah. Heard Ryoko as she felt something tug her sleeve. Looking down she found Sasami. "What's this?" Ryoko asked Naruto. Sasami bowed. "Hello, it's nice to meet you, I'm Sasami," she said smiling. Yeah," responded Ryoko taken aback by the little Jurian girl in front of her. "Hey Ani-chan, who is this old lady? Is she a friend of yours also?" asked Sasami making Naruto wince, knowing how girls absolutely hated having their age commented on. "Old lady?" said Ryoko, her hair flaring slightly and her anger barely restrained before her face putting on a big smile and putting her hand on Sasami's head. "Hi, I'm his friend, but I'm not an old lady. You know what I mean, little girl," she said shaking the girl's head hard. Sasami smiled even though her neck was hurting a bit. "Ow, that kind of hurts," she said in a slightly pained voice, especially when her neck could be heard popping. "Wonder why I didn't have any problems controlling the trees. Usually I can barely get anything," Naruto muttered to himself. "Hey, that's Yasho Ani-chan's sword." Sasami pointed to the sword's hilt that was poking out his pocket. Naruto blinked pulling it out. "What? Yasho Ani-chan?" he said confused. "She can't mean Yasho from the legend, can she?" he thought wondering just how old the girl was. But why were you able to use it?" she asked him, her finger on her lip. Ryoko clapped her hands as she laughed. "Oh yes, show me that sword of yours, Naruto," she told him in a happy tone. Said Naruto unsure of what she was planning. "Now don't move," she said wrapping her arms around him by his neck, making him blush at her closeness. Ryoko, what are you doing?" Ryoko just continued smiling. "You can trust me, relax," she said pulling him close, pressing his body against her. "Ryoko, please just tell me he was cut off," as she put her head against his. "Be quiet," she said softly with her eyes closed. Naruto did as he gazed at her face, so beautiful he thought, while Sasami watched in slight curiosity. The gems on Ryoko's wrist and on the sword began to glow, but Naruto was transfixed on Ryoko's face, never really being this close to many women before without threat of a beating. He couldn't help it as he closed his own eyes and moved his head forward, bringing his lips close to her, getting a whiff of her scent, which was a combination of sake and the forest. Just as his lips were about to meet hers, a voice called out. "That's far enough," came the voice of Aika. Naruto moved his head back in surprise, while Ryoko scowled. "Damn that woman, I nearly got him to kiss me," she thought as she knew what Naruto had been about to do. Ryoko's face then cracked up as she saw Aika's face. "And here comes the Oju-chan, ha. She couldn't help but burst out seeing the drawings on her face and also spotted the signature on her face and knew it was Naruto's work. Sasami was giggling too as she moved herself behind Naruto's legs. "What is so funny?" Aika demanded glaring at the pair. "Bunny-chan, your face. It's funny. Have a look," said Sasami in between giggles and pointing. "Sasami, what are you doing here?" Aika asked, still annoyed at the laughing faces as Naruto had joined in now. "I was bored," she responded. "Bunny-chan, you really need to check your face," she said, trying to stop giggling. "Oh very well, as Akashi ordered." The guardian responded, bring a mirror showing Aika's face to her. When she saw the work of art on her face she first thought it was Ryoko, but remembered the Earth Boy's name, Naruto, and saw she had the initials UNN, and figured it was him, especially since he had been close to her a few minutes ago. She rolled up her sleeve, wiping off some of the ink from her face. She glared at Naruto, who whistled innocently. "I believe your name was Naruto, correct?" she asked, thinking of how she could punish the man for his offense to her face. "Yeah, that's me," he said with a grin on his face, almost make Eika lose control, since he was acting like a male Ryoko. Ryoko herself was chuckling as he had also gotten under Eika's skins too. "I have a question I'd like to ask you," she said seriously, which Naruto responded to by stopping his smirk and nodding, seeing as this was important to her, plus he'd had his fun. Seeing his face, Eika continued, "Where is the owner of the sword you hold?" she asked. Well, he dies a long time ago," he answered honestly to her as Eika went wide eyes. "You're lying," she said, not wanting to believe. "Well, according to the ancient legend, I heard he did anyway," he said obviously. The sword's owner is someone important to her, he thought, seeing her face and look of pain. "What was his name?" she asked, almost not wanting to know. "It was Yasho," he said, seeing her face going pale at this. "No," she said in horror. "Does that help?" he asked, rubbing the back of his head, feeling a little guilty of his prank now, seeing her face. "Oh yeah, he dies, didn't he?" Ryoko said, not much caring. "That's too bad," she said, but Naruto turned, giving a small glare. "It isn't true. You're trying to trick me," she shouted, not wanting to believe Naruto and trying to convince herself. "Azaka, Kamadik," she called. "Ha," the two replied as the two rushed forward, one each. Said Sasami to her sister, not liking her rash action. Ryoko grabbed Sasami and held a beam blade to her throat. "Order your blockheads to back off," she told Eika. "You play dirty to the end," said Eika as she mentally commanded the ship to restrain Ryoko, which it did by vine coming out the ceiling, and tie her up. "Bye-bye lady," said Sasami while Ryoko looked a little sheepish at her situation. "Sasami, come over here," Eika called to her sister. She was about to do so, but saw Naruto about to be attacked by one of the guardians and quickly got in front of him, her arms out. "Get back, Azaka, no. Get back," she ordered, hoping to stop him. "Sasami-chan," Naruto shouted, looking at the sword before holding it out as it glowed, causing the ship to restrain the two guardians and Ryoko being set free. "What are you doing, Naruto?" asked Ryoko. "Kinda making it up as I go," he answered honestly. "What's happening?" "I gave you an order to capture them," Eika said, watching the two get captured before noticing the glowing. "The sword, the master key, is in sync with him. It shouldn't react to anyone but those of royal blood. So why is it?" The realization came to her. "It can't be, no, it can't be true," she said, dropping to her knees. Seeing her distracted, Ryoko wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck, who shivered as she held her body close. "Naruto called Ryooki. You want to go home, don't you?" she told him. "Just make sure to return my Ka-san's house, alright?" Ryoko shined as Naruto mentally called to the ship. "I can't believe it. I won't believe it. It is impossible," Eika said in denial, almost in tears. "Suit yourself," said Ryoko as the ship began shaking. "But you should know where you're standing isn't quite safe," she said as Eika jumped out of the way as the bottom spike of Ryooki burst through the floor. This caused the guardians to get thrown in their restraint, spinning Eika to the floor. "Told you so," Ryoko said with a victorious grin. "Let's go, Naruto," she said, pulling him to Ryooki. "Thank you, little girl," she called to Sasami as she and Naruto phased through the crystal. "Bye-bye, Ani-chan," Sasami waved to Naruto, while an embarrassed Eika pinned down ordered to her guardian, "Do something quickly," but Azaka was unable to move due to the restraints. "I'm sorry," it stuttered. "I will never forgive that woman," Eika vowed against Ryoko. Spreeks. As Ryoko and Naruto appeared on the bridge of Ryooki, Ryoko immediately took control. "I'll make her follow us to Earth. As long as she's up here she'll only give us trouble," she said, voicing her plan. "Just don't hurt them too badly," Ryoko said. Naruto agreeing. "Huh, you're actually agreeing with me, why?" she asked, surprised by his response. "Right now she's really upset but also stubborn with you as her target of frustration. With that, who knows what she'll do. However, I ask you to go easy because of Sasami-chan. She's a nice girl and doesn't need to get hurt," he explained, which she nodded to. "Alright, let's do this," she said with a smirk. Ryooki turned over, putting Eika's ship face the Earth now before falling toward Earth, making the two ships heat up on re-entry. Ryooki's mass is growing abnormally, informed Azaka to Eika as an alarm sounded. "Why aren't they under our control?" Eika asked calmly. Despite the situation they were in, they must have used the master key, said Kamadik. The ship rocked as a piece of the ship broke off from the heat. "What are you doing? Attack, attack," Eika ordered. "It's too dangerous," said Kamadik. "Its descent velocity is increasing. If we fall to Earth, even Ryo will not escape serious damage," said Azaka to Eika. "How unreasonable that woman is," Eika said aloud as Ryoko's giggling could be heard over the speakers. "Ryoko-san, stop this immediately," Eika demanded at the image of a smiling Ryoko on screen. "As she did, more parts of Ryo broke off. Even you won't be able to escape unharmed. Say something," she demanded, but only succeeding in making Ryoko smile more. There were more explosion on the exterior of Eika's ship. "Stop this immediately, I know you can hear me," she demanded as Ryoko smiled, enjoying once more getting one up on Eika. "So seconds to Earth surface," said a panicked Kamadik, while on Ryooki Naruto was starting to question his logic and trusting Ryoko. Ryoko, don't you think this is going too far?" She smiled, not looking from the screen. Not at all, Naruto, she said happily, while Aika stared at Ryoko's image. Ryoko-san, please stop. She said. But it had no effect, and seeing this, Aika made her decision. Jettison the ship's exterior, she commanded. The ship's wooden frame shot off, cushioning them as they hit the water, but the red part of the ship was still attached to Ryooki as they slipped across the water. Naruto sighed slightly at Aika's thinking and looked to Ryoko, who still had a smile on her face. She's as crazy as me. She knew Aika would make her ship's exterior take the hit of the impact and so prevent her from leaving Earth, he thought, before he sounded the ship to be spinning. The extra weight of Ryuo made them bounce on the water, making everyone dizzy and unable to stop them from crashing into a nearby bridge. Breaks. Our top story this morning, around 4 a.m., an object believed to be a meteor fell on the Great Naruto Bridge, destroying the bridge on impact. As a result, trade between Nami no Kuni and Hai no Kuni has been temporarily stopped, with no word as to when service will be restored. Other damage is under investigation by local police and shinobi forces. Naruto turned off the TV, sighing as he had both managed to learn that the bridge from his first mission was named after him, but also he had managed to destroy it. To just me luck, he thought, eating the breakfast Sasami made for him and Jiraiya. Wow, take a look at that, it's a major story. And well done, Naruto, you managed to get a bridge named after you, said Jiraiya, munch on his rice. What's wrong? You don't look well at all, Naruto. Bad night in, he said with a slight grin, which Naruto responded to by flicking some rice in his face. Hey, cut that out, we got back safely, didn't we? You should be thankful, he said, wiping his face of the rice. Of course, the house is now a bit closer to Konoha and close to your Katsuhito still. Pretty convenient if you ask me, he said, going back to his meal. Eat this, it's good, said Ryoko, offering him one of the dishes. Thanks, Ryoko-chan, he said, seeing as she didn't seem to mind the suffix. You're lucky you don't have a scratch, she said, smiling. Yeah, but my scratches heal very quickly, he thought to himself. You really ought to be thanking me, she continued, her eyes half closed. Jiraiya began giggling perversely at the ideas of thanking the girl before he found more rice in his face. After all, I took care of you and protected you at my own personal risk, she said before being cut off. But most of the crash was absorbed by our ship. That's why you were okay, Sasami explained, tucking into her food too. So that's why our landing point was off. Ryoko said, thinking in mild wonder before shivering. I almost landed back in that damn cave, she said, not wanting to back to that place ever again. Jiraiya, wiping his face, then noticed something. I thought there was another young lady with you, where'd she go? He asked, getting more rice in his face. What'd I do this time? He asked, having to wipe his face as the other two giggled. You really have to ask. Just eat your food, Iro-senin, he said, taking a bite of some of the fish. Ryoko smiled, seeing how Naruto acted, and was thankful, knowing that the man was a massive pervert, before pointing to Aika by her crashed ship. She's over there. Aika outside was trying to pull pieces of her ship Ryuo out of the water. She managed to get a small piece before looking at the state of her ship. She rushed back to the home. Sasami, what are you doing? Come and help me save Ryuo, my ship, she pleaded to her sister. Sasami lowered her chopsticks from her mouth. It's too big for us to handle, she said. I'd help, but even with Kage Bunshin, there's no way to get it all out. I'm sorry, added Naruto. We'll never get it out, Sasami finished, sending Naruto a thankful nod for the offer. Aika silently fumed in I'm tears hearing this before running back to her ship. I can't get stranded on a remote planet like this, I simply can't. Oh, my ship, my Ryuo, she cried, tripping, throwing the pieces of she had at the main part of Ryuo. This caused it to sink further into the lake, which Aika began to cry over slightly. Naruto inside could only think, well, what's life without a few surprises? And who knows, it could be interesting with these girls around when we head back to Konoha. Ryoko, on the other hand, only smiled seeing him accept all this and letting her stay. I wonder how long it would take me to get him to kiss me again, she pondered. Jiraiya thoughts were only bestseller. Here I come, Naruto, you will be my greatest work, maybe I'll get lucky and more girls will appear soon too. Who could know what the universe held for the blonde-haired ninja? At dawn's first light, Naruto was currently training with his clones, each having their assigned duty, while he was in the process of practicing his kenjutsu with his weighted bokken. His Oji-san had given him weighted clothes to help out when he first started, which consisted of a blue short-sleeved kimono top and gray pants, simple attire, but effective. Naruto, after progressing with his Fuinjutsu, also employed the use of gravity seals to further improve his strength and speed. He hadn't taken them off in some time and honestly was unsure just how strong he had gotten. Katsuhito was proud of him using his initiative like that and taught Naruto all he could in the sword, including moves Naruto would never have dreamed of. An example was channeling his chakra into the blade and releasing it all at a single point. With Naruto's reserves, it was a devastating attack. He loved training with his sword as it made him feel closer to his Oji-san and in a way his mother, as he had told him she had picked up the sword at his age. However, Naruto made sure that all he had learned didn't go to his head and remembered that by taking up the sword you must respect it, for it is an extension of yourself, so you should never turn your back on it and use it wisely, not for things like revenge. Thinking back, Naruto wondered what the techniques he knew would be like if he had the Tenchi-kun, since the blade was as strong as steel yet light as a feather, it only being a hilt. He had given it back to Eika as a sign of respect, and the fact it technically belonged to her and her half-brother, who he learned from Sasami was meant to be married to. He grew a little curious over hers and Sasami's age, but then recalled Ryoko and her age, so forgot about it. Sasami had elaborated in that she and other Jurians had longevity and could live hundreds of years without it showing. Naruto hoped Takami Orochimaru never got a hold of them. This also brought up a thought, since Uzumaki were known for the longevity, he would be expected to live a long time, but factoring in the Kyuubi and healing factor could mean he might end up like them too. This had slightly scared him, but thinking about the girls reassured him slightly, as Ryoko at least seemed to want to stay, so at least he wouldn't be alone in his old age. Finishing his kata, he breathed out a deep breath and began dispelling his clones, getting the efforts of their training back. He sighed, thinking soon I'll be heading back and I won't ever be the same as before. Breeks. Eika woke up with a scream. The dream she just had was the day Yasho had left to chase after Ryoko. She then chased him into somewhere dark, but just as she was about to reach him, he turned around and phased into that Naruto person. The remembrance of him giving the Tenchi-ken back to her playing fresh in her memory within the dream, she had then screamed out in sadness only to wake up. She looked to her side and picked up the Tenchi-ken, holding close to her heart. He isn't dead, he can't be, she kept insisting to herself. She looked over to her sister and saw she was happily sleeping, so she went up to the window that was in their room and looked to the morning view. Looking at the remaining wreckage of her Ryuo that was sticking out of lake nearby, she couldn't help but long to leave this world. I wish I could go home to planet Jurai. She then noticed something moving in her vision. Huh? Looking down, she saw it was Ryoko in a new dress. This one having a green and orange jacket, the green being on right half, while the orange being on the left half, a white long kimono that was parted a bit to show her cleavage with the sides cut to show her legs, showing that they were covered in red spandex pants that seemed connect to the equally red shoes that had a metal circle at the top end of them. What's she up to so early? She pondered, seeing Ryoko. What a disgusting thing to see first thing in the morning, that monster woman. She closed the curtains in a huff, going to get changed. Ryoko, meanwhile oblivious to Eika's gaze, was walking across the lake looking for something. Let's see, she said, phasing down to the surface of the lake where a lot of the rubble was of the two ships. Looking through the wreckage without apparently needing to breathe, she spotted a small black egg and smiled, finding it before picking it up and rubbing it against her cheek caringly. Breeks. Sasami opened the door to the room she and her sister were sharing and walked out before turning back to the person. Not come on, One-sama, she said politely to her sister. Eika poked her head out the door. No, I don't want to, she said, refusing to leave. One-sama, you've stayed in this room for one whole week. They're going to think we Jurians don't even have the courtesy to say hello, she insisted to Eika, trying to coax her out the room. No, they won't, Eika argued loudly before blushing at her outburst, but the head of the home is out now, isn't he? She asked, her hand on her cheek. Jiraiya-san may be out, but Naruto Nai-chan is at home. Plus Naruto Nai-chan is the head of the house, as his Ka-san passed it down to him, it's him who takes care of it, Sasami told her sister. She then put on a dad look. One-sama, this is very hard on me, she said with a small sigh. I'm sorry, Sasami. I should be the one to worry about these things, Eika apologized, making Sasami raise an eyebrow before sighing in relief. Eika adjusted her kimono before turning to the door. Let's go, she said calmly, walking out the room. Sasami ran ahead of Eika and went down the stairs before looking back and making sure Eika was following. The only slight problem was that Ryoko poked her head up from her position on the couch, making Eika huff. Seeing the woman, how unpleasant, she muttered. Seeing her sister act stubborn, Sasami began to pull her by her hands. One-sama, she said, basically dragging her to the bottom of the stairs. Well, look who's here, it's been so long I was beginning to think you died, said Ryoko to Eika, taunting a little. Sasami looked round. Where's Naruto Nai-chan? She asked, not seeing the blonde Naruto. Well, he isn't here, that's for sure, she said, holding the egg in her lap. And I worked so hard to get One-sama out here, said Sasami, disappointed before noticing the egg. Huh? She walked over to Ryoko. What have you got there? What is it? She asked, happy. Ryoko smiled at the excited girl. You want to know? She asked. She nodded with a yes. Looking at them slightly before huffing and Ryoko smiling, enjoying her playing with Eika before turning to Sasami. It was born this morning, isn't it adorable? She said, holding it to her cheek. Did you lay it? Sasami asked, interested about the egg, but Eika decided to interject. Sasami, don't touch. It was then the door slided open to reveal Naruto yawning slightly, and he rubbed his shoulder. He blinked slightly, seeing Eika outer room. Eika-san, he said, surprised. Blushing at her recent behavior and noticing the handsome face of Naruto, she bowed to him. "Ah, please allow me to express my gratitude for your hospitality to the Jirai royal family." She looked up to see his slightly confused face. "Anyway, thank you very much," she bowed again to him as he chuckled. "It's fine, just don't bow to me, I don't deserve it, Aika-san," he said, rubbing the back of his head, smiling slightly. "Hey Oju-chan, don't you want to know about this egg?" asked Ryoko, breaking the mood, not liking the blush of Aika's face. "I saw him first, and I know him better, little girl," she thought, smiling on the outside. Aika turned her head up at Ryoko. "I have no intention of listening to your insults," she said, huffing again before noticing something in the corner of her eyes. "Sasami, what are you doing? You'll get germs from that," she asked her sister as she rubbed the egg in her hands. Sasami stopped her rubbing and looked up. "But Ryoko-ni-chan's baby is going to be born, and that's definitely something I want to see," she said, cheerfully holding the egg happily. She then turned to the mother. "So are you married, aren't you?" "Who is the father?" she asked the woman who had a cat-like grin, suggesting mischief was coming before whispering into her ear. "Sasami," said Aika loudly, not wanting her young sister to spend too much time with Ryoko. Seeing her reaction, Ryoko continued whispering, "You see?" She finished as Sasami exclaimed, "Naruto Nai-chan." In surprise, shocking Aika, who turned to the now really confused Naruto. He then took note of how angry Aika was looking. What? Aika-san, are you alright now?" he asked, a little worried seeing the angry woman. "That certainly is none of your business," she shouted at him before pointing at Ryoko. "Why don't you just go over there and hold that egg with that monster woman," she told him. "Aika-san, please don't call Ryoko-chan that, and what's this egg?" he asked as Ryoko leaned against his shoulder, smiling. "I'm so happy to be bearing the child of the man I love." "Child? When the heck did this happen? Ryoko-chan, what's going on?" he asked as she placed the egg in his hands later. "Now hold it tight, it won't be long," she said, amused. All eyes turned to the egg. "Okay, seriously, what's going on?" asked Naruto as he felt the egg shake before cracking and a brown rabbit foot popping out of the shell. "What?" said Naruto, confused, still holding onto the egg, not wanting to hurt whatever it was. Sasami gasped watching but began giggling seeing the head of the animal pop out, showing a cat-like face with bunny, but still cat-like ears. "Odd, like a mix of two animals, a cabbit," he thought as the cabbit meowed with its eyes closed. Naruto took note of the ruby jewel on its forehead before Ryoko took the cabbit and began nuzzling it to her face. "Come here, my little Ryoki-chan," she said in a loving tone. "Ryoki, your ship? You mean that this cabbit is?" he asked as Ryoko laughed at his expression. "Ryoki?" Aika narrowed her eyes at the little furry animal in Ryoko's arms. "Yeah, this is Ryoki's child," she said, petting its furry head. "Can a ship have a baby?" asked Sasami, wide-eyed and amazed looking at Ryoki. "Sure, my ship was totally destroyed, so it reproduced itself," she said, smiling at the faces of Naruto and Aika. "You must be crazy to think it's Naruto's child. Here's no blonde hair for a start, but she does have his whiskers," she chuckled. "Yeah, I thought that was kind of strange," commented Sasami in an amused tone, while her sister huffed at the spectacle. "This is so typical, you're all making fun of me," she said, turning around to leave. "Aika-san, please wait, we're not making fun of you," said Naruto, grasping her arms. "At least I'm not." She shrugged off his arms before slapping him across the face. "Let go, you circus," she said as the sound echoed. "Thought you were different, you're no better than that demon, so go back to her," she said harshly before running out. However, as she left, Naruto felt his anger rise at her comment, his eyes changing to slitted red. Ryoko was quick to react, putting Ryoki down and getting to his side. "Naruto, calm down, you don't want to scare Sasami," she whispered as he remembered Sasami and Aika didn't know, but it seemed Ryoko did. As Aika ran out, she managed to bump into Katsuhito. "Oops," he said as he held her shoulders. Aika looked ready to cry, but held herself strong. "I beg your pardon," before looking up at Katsuhito's face and almost seemed to recognize him. "Is something the matter, Oju-san?" he asked as Aika couldn't help but stare at his rose-colored eyes before blushing. "No. Nothing really," she said, walking away. Back in the room, Ryoki was climbing the couch as Sasami watched and quickly became friends as Ryoki jumped up and perched herself on her shoulder with a happy meow. Ryoko meanwhile was still at Naruto's side. "You okay, Naruto?" she asked, worried slightly. "Yeah, I'm fine and thanks for that. But I take it you know," he said as she nodded. "For some time, but it doesn't bother me, although it seems your anger sensitive still," she whispered as Sasami played with her new friend. "I'm better at controlling it and my emotions, but sometimes choice words set me off, but thanks Ryoko-chan for keeping me calm," he said as she put on a big smile. "You are so sweet." Her hands began rubbing his chest and her face to his whisker marks, much to his hidden pleasure. "You're so sweet to be concerned about me," she said happily as her hands went further south, making him flush. "Oi, above the belt please," he said, hoping to control his body's reactions. "Fine, I can do this later, but Naruto, where is the sword?" she asked, ceasing her roaming hands for now. "The sword? I gave it back to Aika-san," he said as she went bug-eyed and grabbed his shirt. Hearing this, "You what?" "But that sword contains all of my energy source," she exclaimed before putting on a small fainting act swing back. "What is she uses it?" She however fell into the hands of Katsuhito second time today. "I guess I'm lucky," said Katsuhito as he gave Ryoko's breast a squeeze, making Naruto's look at him oddly. "Oji-san, I'm shocked at this, I expected more from Iro-senin. I take it the seal's working fine." He said as Naruto had using his father's work created a transportation seal for his Oji-san that let him teleport from his shrine to the house instantly. "What are you doing, dirty Jiji?" shouted Ryoko, sending a hard punch at the old man, only for him to calmly block it with his palm. Naruto didn't bat an eye, knowing that his Oji-san had a lot of strength despite his age. He would put his strength on equal terms with Tsunade. "What a spry lady we've got here," he smiled as Ryoko pulled her fist away and stared at it, then Katsuhito in confusion. He then walked over to Sasami with Ryooki situated on her head. "Now then, this is Naruto's baby, is it?" he asked, scratching her under her chin. "No, Jai-chan, this is Ryooki. She just hatched from an egg," Sasami explained as Katsuhito petted her and Ryooki on her head while she smiled at. I see, he said looking at Naruto. "Naruto, now that you are a father of a child," he started. "What are you talking about, Oji-san?" he asked, not believe what his grandfather was saying. "You'll have to become responsible, not that you aren't already, but now you've got a bumpy road ahead," he lectured. Naruto just rubbed the bridge of his nose. "You know, there's no point in arguing, I'm just going to leave," he said, leaving, and once the door closed Katsuhito called out, "Naruto, don't forget practice this afternoon." Sasami meanwhile looked a little worried. "Oni-chan," she said. Seeing her face, Katsuhito smiled down at her. "Don't worry, Naruto has taken care of himself for a long time. Plus he's a lot smarter now than he was when we first met," he said to her, although he's inherited his mother's stubbornness. Ryooki then turned on her position on Sasami's head before jumping off and heading to the window. "Ryooki-chan," Sasami said, following the cabin. Said animal ended up running into the glass door, making herself get hit and roll back before getting up, shaking her head. "What did it, Ryooki-chan?" Sasami asked. She looked out the window to see her sister as she looked at the remains of Ryooki, then phased through the window like Ryoko could. "Hey, where are you going?" said Sasami, trying to follow, but forgetting she couldn't phase the walls, and banged her head as Ryooki had. "Ryooki-chan," she called before jumping, hearing the crash behind her. She looked, seeing Ryoko by now destroyed stairs, evidently she had punched. She then looked to Sasami and Katsuhito, the later smiling as she asked what? She asked as if nothing had happened. "Breeks." Outside, Aika silently stared at the remains of her ship Ryuo, knowing that salvaging it would be near impossible now, and the fact that her brother was most likely dead too. By her feet, Ryooki noticed a sad look on her face and rubbed her head against her leg, hoping to cheer her up. Feeling something against her leg, Aika jumped in surprise, hoping to scare away whatever the creature was. After a moment, she looked down to see the culprit was Ryooki, who meowed happily as Aika had stopped crying. "Ryooki," she exclaimed with an annoyed face before trying to shoo her away. "Go away, you little dirty thing," she said to the cabbage. Ryooki just tilted her head cutely before hopping toward her, which Aika reacted to by stepping back before the cabbage moved closer. Aika huffed, crossing her arms. "Very well, I want you to stay right there. I'll be the one to go away," she said, pointing to herself before starting to leave. "Don't you dare follow me," she warned as she walked off, and immediately followed by Ryooki. As she walked through the forest, Ryooki continued to follow her. She was constantly checking to see if she was there. She turned off at a footpath before looking back, catching her in the act. "One said don't follow me," she said as Ryooki stopped and quickly rushed into the bush before poking her head out with a look of sorry. Not much caring, Aika turned back, but then noticed something by Ryooki, the royal teardrop. She said in surprise, seeing a flower that she'd seen many a time on Jurai. Bending down, she plucked the flower nearby the cabbage. "No, it can't be," she muttered, remembering once offering the flower to Yasho, as it was the same color as his eyes. As the memory hit her of being betrothed to Yasho and to be wed once older, made her start to cry, her tears dripping on the lower part of her kimono. Seeing her crying, Ryooki hopped into her lap and licked her hand as a tear hit her nose, but Aika moved her hands to her face to try and stop her crying. "Leave me alone, please leave me alone," she said sadly. Ryooki jumped off as told, looked sad, trying to think of something to cheer Aika up. When she moved her hands from her eyes, she found a flower being held up by Ryooki in her mouth, offering it to Aika. "For me?" she asked as Ryooki gave her an eye smile, meowing in confirmation as Aika took the flower, giggling. "You funny little thing," she said in a thankful tone. Ryooki hopped in her lap again as Aika started to pet and scratch under her chin. "Don't you know that I hate out?" she asked in a happy tone as the cabbage licked her hand, making Aika giggle again at the kind actions of Ryooki. Breeks. Back at the Uzumaki clan home, Ryoko phased through the floor of Aika's and Sasami's room. Looking around, she saw no one was in, and then started to look through all the luggage that was salvaged from Ryuo. "Let's see," she muttered, looking for obviously the sword, but unable to find it. Just where would she keep that sword? She asked herself before noticing a holographic image of Yasho. Her Oni-sama, she said scowling, but then put on a thoughtful look. Good riddance to him, she said happy. Oni-chan, where are you? Shouted the voice of Sasami behind the door. This doesn't look good, she muttered, phasing out of the room via a nearby wall, just as Sasami entered the room. No, she isn't here. Where did everyone go to? She wondered, feeling a little lonely. Breeks. Back outside, Aika sat under a nearby tree with Ryoko napping on her lap. So tell me, what do I do now? She asked the sleeping cabbage. With my spaceship destroyed, I can neither fly nor communicate with my people, she muttered, scratching Ryoko's belly. The only clue I have is the sword. I wonder, she said as she looked over to the lake from her position on the hillside. Could my Oni-sama really be, she muttered as Ryoko yawned cutely in her lap. But you don't understand a word I say, she said as the now awake Ryoko seemed to hear something and jumped off Aika's lap to head toward the sound. What is it? Asked Aika. You'll get lost, she said as Ryoko gestured with her ears before running into the forest. Ryoko-chan, Aika called as she rushed after the cabbage, quickly losing sight of her. I can't find her anywhere, she muttered, concerned for the cabbage, which seemed to be much better than her apparent parent Ryoko. She then heard the sounds of grunting and the sound of something hitting against wood. Humming to a clearing, she found Katsuhito and several Narutos, all having a different task. Some were holding leaves in their hands, other with seeds, and some just concentrating on the air itself, pulling water from air, and oddly, there were some just meditating while balanced on a stone slab balanced on a small spike. The only lone Naruto was currently hopping from tall stone pillars from the ground while knocking a piece of wood tied to a rope with a bokken. Make sure to watch your feet, Naruto said Katsuhito from the side. I know, he said, maintaining the exercise as Aika watched in amazement, seeing the boy easily jumping on the small pillars without showing any signs of stress. Alright, that's enough of that, come down, said Katsuhito as Naruto jumped down with no signs of pain from the tall drop. Now let's start with the basic patterns, as basics can win a battle a lot of the time, said Katsuhito in his own training gear and bokken in hand. Okay, Naruto responded. The two of them held their bokkens at their sides before laying them on their left shoulders. Aika looked surprised at the action. Ready? Asked Katsuhito. Yes, Naruto replied as the two went charging past each other and started going through the kata. Aika's eyes went wide, seeing Naruto's stance. That's as he practiced. An image of Yasho came over Naruto. That's just like the swordplay routines of Jirai royal family. Oni-sama, she thought in shock. It may be a clue to his whereabouts. Naruto-sama, she called before slipping down the slope behind her with a scream. Naruto looked to where he heard his name get called out before he was hit in the head by his grandfather. Ow, he cried, holding his head. What's wrong, Naruto? You're a sitting duck, said his grandfather. Was that part of the routine? He asked, getting back to his feet. Nope, his grandfather said plainly as Naruto was tempted to throttle the man before walking over to where he heard the scream. What was that? He said before covering his eyes, blushing as in her current position, Aika's luscious legs were bare to see. Ouch, why must I suffer from this kind of disgrace? Aika whined before noticing Naruto and quickly trying to cover her modesty. What are you doing down there? He asked, dropping down the slope to her. Are you alright? He asked, letting his concern for her overtake his hormones. I'm sorry, I'm alright, she answered. Aika-san, said Naruto worriedly. I'm alright, she insisted, getting to her feet before going down again, hissing in pain. It hurts, she told him as she held onto his arm with her own. Naruto noticed the blood from her leg. Red blood, he muttered to himself as he had been curious to the color of their blood, being aliens. Ayaka said, confused. Oh, nothing. He waved off his comment as his grandfather came by. What are you doing there? He asked before going on one knee and examining Aika's leg. It looks like a bad sprain, he said, wrapping a piece of cloth around her ankle. Excuse me, Aika muttered, getting the old man attention. That sword play routine you were performing, she tried to ask as Katsuhito turned to Naruto. Naruto, carry this young lady home on your back. She better not be using this foot for a while, he told him, getting an affirmative nod from the boy. Sir, did I say anything to offend you? Aika asked, thinking she had upset the old man, walking away. I'll be on my way home. You take care of her, Naruto, he said, walking away from the scene, while Naruto looked a little curiously at his grandfather as he had openly avoided the question Aika was trying to ask before turning back to Aika, seeing her sad face. Breeks. Ryoko-ni-chan, Sasami called out to the bummed out woman laying on the couch, bummed out because she couldn't find the tenchi-ken anywhere. It's raining, she told the cyan-haired woman as soon as she made it over to the couch. Ryoko just grunting at what she said. Stop the rain, my sister and the others are still outside, Sasami pleaded to Ryoko. On this planet they don't have a way of doing that yet, she told her. Meanwhile in aim, a orange-haired man with multiple piercings sneezed. Everything alright? Asked a blue-haired woman with a flower in her hair. Yes, everything is fine, he informed her. Back with Ryoko, she suddenly had a bright idea. "Hey Sasami-chan, do you happen to know where your One-E-chan keeps Naruto's sword?" she asked, happy expecting her answers from the little girl. She carries it with her wherever she goes, I think, she answered to the best of her knowledge, making Ryoko do a 180 of course, she muttered, laying back down on the couch. Breeks. Naruto was currently running through the forest with Aika on his back, trying to look for shelter from the rain. He knew being out in it too long would be bad for Aika, as she didn't have his immune system. However, as luck would have it, he came across a familiar sight. "Well, I didn't think I'd ever see this again," he thought, looking at the shed where Mizuki had tricked him all those years ago. "We must be closer to Konoha than I thought, although I did run quite far," he mused, sliding the door open and walking and placing Aika on one of the benches inside. Once inside, he took off his weighted shirt and wringed it out, not noticing Aika blushing up a storm seeing his six-pack chest, but his body structure wasn't overly bulky, instead seemed to be made for speed too. She also took note of the different marking on his stomach and arms, alongside the numerous scars over his body, including a large almost fist-shaped one. Using one of the storage seals on his wrist, Naruto unsealed a small towel he kept there for training. "Here, you can dry yourself off with this," he offered with a small smile. He noticed that she seemed to be shivering while also not meeting his eyes. Looking round, he made a small pile of nearby wood and created a small crater using earth jutsu before lighting them with a fire jutsu, much Aika's amazement. Knowing she would need to get out her wet clothes, Naruto turned to the door. "I'll go outside for a bit while you dry yourself off," he said, getting a small nod, leaving the shed, closing the door behind him. He shivered a little, but shrugged it off, being used to cold weather, before looking up at the sky. "Not long now," he muttered, thinking about him leaving his home again. Inside, Aika stripped off her wet clothing and laid it down neatly before wiping herself with a towel, but as she did, she thought about the owner Naruto and how she'd been treating him this past week. She also remembered slapping him. "I shouldn't have done that, he apologized for that prank a week ago, and he actually wasn't laughing either. Oh, I shouldn't have used those words, I doubt her took it nicely, then again who would?" she thought, a little guilty. The sound of clattering came from somewhere in the shed. She looked behind her to see what made the noise, but saw nothing before turning back round, only for the sound of clattering to be heard again. "What is it?" she asked herself, sitting down just as something jumped from the shadows and landed face first onto her breasts. Her face went red before screaming in fright. Hearing her, Naruto rushed inside. "Aika-san, what's wrong?" he asked as said girl clung to the boy for protection, and Naruto began searching the room for signs of danger while putting his hands on her waist. Something lunged at me," she said, clinging to his body. Looking down, Naruto saw the source of the incident as Ryoko poked her head out with tears threatening to fall from her eyes as she meowed in apology. Naruto sighed in relief. "Don't worry, it's only Ryoko," he told Aika as Aika turned her head to see the sad-faced Ryoko. "Oh, she scared the daylights out of me, the naughty thing," she said, her hand feeling something soft and warm. She muttered, looking up to see Naruto's face looking down at hers, making her face flush, as did his making the two separate from their position. I guess I'll just go back outside," he said, not wanting Aika to feel awkward around him. Turning to leave outside, she muttered, making his stop and turn to see her concerned face. "Outside must be cold," she said, not wanting him to stay out in the rain. Naruto himself was having trouble keeping his blush controlled as he had little experience being in the same room with women wearing wet clothes like Aika was. The two sat down by the fire while Ryoko roamed around the inside of the shed. "I guess I misunderstood certain things," Aika said to Naruto. He said, wondering what she was talking about. "Since you were with Ryoko-san, I thought you were her friend," she said to him, a little quiet. "Well, she is my friend, but I tend to make friends quickly, really, then again I class you as a friend too, Aika-san," he told her, erecting a blush on her face, knowing he didn't dislike her. "But it really all started when I opened the gate," he told her. "The gate?" she asked him curiously. He nodded. "There is a cave nearby the shrine where my Oji-san lives, and Ryoko was locked up in it," he explained. "My Ani-sama did that," said Aika, knowing how strong her brother was. "Yasho, right?" Naruto muttered. "That's what the legend says," he continued before there was a silence. "Can I ask you a question, Aika-san?" "Oh sure," she nodded, looking up at him as he did the same. "What are you going to do now?" he asked, concerned for his friend. "I know I cannot return to my planet now. I must continue the search for my brother, only it's hard for me having no relatives on this alien planet," she said sadly, knowing that she and her sister were on their own on an alien planet. "In that case, just stay with us," he said plainly and simply. "I'm responsible for all this by unsealing Ryoko-chan. Plus," he smiled softly, making her face go redder, "since you are related to Yasho, that makes us family too in a way," he said happily. "Yasho was my half-brother," she informed him as Naruto stayed quiet for her explanation. "You may think it odd to marry your brother." Naruto could only think no, you see it all the time in clans in Konoha, especially the Hyuga, so that the Kekkei Genkai remain strong and so-called pure. He listened as Aika continued. But even thought my parents arranged the engagement. I was happy about it. He face then turned sad just to think that I won't be able to share this feeling with my Ani-sama. I don't. Tears began to fall from her face. Thinking this, I don't know what to do anymore, she said, covering her face. Naruto began to think of something before remembering. His ship, it must have been destroyed just like yours was, he said before standing up and smiling at her. If he crashed it means he was stranded here, but if he had longevity like you said, it's very possible that he's still alive. Eika-san, so please cheer up, okay? Him saying this relieved Eika as she smiled, believing his words. He then heard Ryooki meowing, meaning she wanted his attention. He looked down. What's up, Ryooki-chan? He saw she had dragged a basket full of carrots over. Carrots, you want this carrot? He asked, picking one up. She nodded, and he smiled, picking her up and setting her on his lap, feeding her the carrot which she nibbled up and meowed in happiness at the taste. Carrots, huh? He chuckled as Eika giggled watching him feed the little cabbit. Eat enough of these, and you'll grow into a spaceship, Ryooki-chan, he said smiling as the cabbit nodded in agreement, eating her carrot, enjoying he petting Naruto was also giving her breaks. After a little while the sound of rain ceased, and Naruto opened the door to check outside, seeing clear skies. Well, it looks like it cleared up, he said, looking back to Eika holding out his hand. Well, let's go, he said as Eika stared for a few seconds before taking his hand. The two began making their way back to the clan home, both fully clothed again, and Eika back on Naruto's back, enjoying the ride to her hidden pleasure. As they walked she spotted a large tree in the distance. Huh, what is that? She asked as Naruto looked in the direction of the tree. Naruto tried to remember it and then called forth the knowledge, that's the original tree. Apparently it's the tree that the Shodaime Hokage first learned to use Mokuton wood release, he explained before asking, would you like to go see it? She nodded, feeling something familiar about the tree, and the three of them made their way with Ryooki having several carrots strapped to her back while holding one in her mouth. When they got there Naruto let Eika walk over to the tree as she inspected it. There is no doubt, this is Funoho, it's alive, she said in relief. Funoho? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow. My Ani-sama's ship, she elaborated to Naruto, remember there was a tree exactly like this on my ship. This tree is the heart and soul of the ship. Naruto placed his hand on the tree's trunk, so this tree can transform into one of those giant ships. He asked, curious, wondering if the tree was the source of the Mokuton ability. She shook her head. No, this tree has taken root, it can't become a ship, she said, taking out the tenchi-kun and tapping the trunk twice as electricity sparked out the end, making it send out a high-pitched tone. The tree's leaves began lighting up and shooting rainbow-like beams around them, which reflected off the water into the sky. Whoa, what's happening? Said Naruto, slightly amazed at the spectacle. The ship's memory, Eika explained as images of past events began to appear. Memory? Said Naruto, curious as the image became clearer. He looked around and saw it was space again, but then he saw something coming out from the darkness of it. What is that? Just then, Ryooki and another Jurian ship flew by. That's my Ani-sama's ship, Eika confirmed to Naruto. As the two fought from their ships on the planet's surface, another fight was being shown, this one showing Ryoko in a sort of berserk-like state, fighting a man in royal clothing. This man having tanned skin, red eyes, and long black hair. Ryoko, she almost looks like. He said, remembering how he got in his Jinchuriki state, and that's Yasho, he said, seeing the man wielding the tenchi-kun against Ryoko. When Yasho's ship shot Ryoko's ship far from the where Funoho had crash landed, he saw a smaller ship eject from and follow to where Ryoko had crashed. Not a second later, that the two seemed to have gone through a tough battle, as even though Ryoko looked relatively unharmed, Yasho was bleeding from an injury on his head and his body looked torn up and bruised. The one thing that was keeping him from getting injured further was Yasho having stabbed Ryoko in the throat, seemingly sucking in the red gems through the beam of the tenchi-ken that were Ryoko's source of power. Naruto oddly noted the crash seemed to have made the valley and mountains that was around the shrine, so this was how the lake was made, he noted. As soon as the vision of Ryoko having lost to Yasho was done, the tree stopped its special lighting effect, ending the vision the two had just saw. You were right, Naruto-sama, he is alive, I'm sure of it now. Since Funoho is alive, somewhere on this planet Yasho must be alive also, she said happily. She looked at Naruto, giving him an apologetic smile to him. I'm sorry I've been cold to you, I'll return this to you, she said, handing over the tenchi-ken. Are you sure, Eika-san? He asked, knowing what it meant to her. You are related by blood to Jiraiya's royal family. I am asking you to protect us until my Ani-sama is found, she said smiling. Very well, Eika-san, but I'll make sure to keep it safe and wield it with respect, he said, taking the sword. Besides, I'd protect you and Sasami-chan anyway, Ryoko-chan too, he said with a grin that she giggled too. Ani-sama called the voice of Sasami heading toward them, Ryooki leading her. Sasami, Eika said in surprise of seeing her sister, where have you been? You've been gone so long, I was worried, she asked her big sister. I'm sorry, did you come here all this way by yourself? She asked Sasami, who shook her head. No, Ryoko-ni-chan is with me and Ryo-oki-chan met us halfway. She brought us here, she informed Aika with the cabot taking her place on her shoulder. Aika giggled at Ryo-oki. You are one funny little creature, she said as the cabot repositioned itself on Sasami's head. Okay, what a friendly atmosphere, said the familiar voice of Ryoko as they all turned to see her standing on the water. Ryoko-chan. Naruto waved slightly, seeing her not really having much of a problem with her like Aika did. She phased to his side and stared at Aika. Naruto, how come you've been with this unworthy girl all this time? She asked. 1. Don't talk about people's worth, Ryoko-chan, and 2. Aika-chan was injured so I couldn't leave her, he defended, making Ryoko sigh knowing he was right, but was happy knowing that was his way as she wouldn't like him any other way. She then noticed the sword in his hand. Ooh, you got the sword back, Naruto, well done my boy, she said happily, patting his shoulder. No, I returned the sword to Naruto-sama, she informed Ryoko, making the woman give Aika a look, but decided to play it off. Okay, so you're pissed we got it back, she said. But it's true, Ryoko-chan, said Naruto, stopping that idea. Naruto-kun and I are related by blood, it's really none of your business, she said in a cheerful tone. Electricity began to arc around Ryoko's body. None of my business, she said, angry and annoyed. I come all this way just to help you, she said before turning her head in a huff. Alright, then do what you want, she said, teleporting away. Ryoko-ni-chan, Sasami called to her, to help us? Said Aika, confused. Ryoko-chan, come back, there's no need to get upset, he shouted, hoping to call her back. Ryoko angry was never a good thing. Forget it, let's go, said Aika, walking over to him, but knowing Ryoko, I don't think it's good having her annoyed. Oh wait, Iro-senin might be back, never mind, he said, thinking the man would be getting punched for no reason very soon. Well, at least I have you to protect me if anything happens, she giggled before grabbing his hand and dragging him off. Let's go, Naruto-sama, she said, giggling. Naruto blushed at Aika's sudden boldness. Come on, she urged as he let himself be dragged off. Sasami meanwhile sighed at her sister's actions, but was also happy seeing her sister smile and silently thanked her Naruto-nai-chan for helping her. She was looking forward to spending more time with him since she really liked him, as did Ryo-oki on her head. Breaks. It was a couple days later that Naruto, Jiraiya and the girls were making their way back to Konoha, and Naruto had the job of managing the fights between Ryoko and Aika. He figured both saw him in a romantic sense, so did his best not to spend too much time with either of them. Instead, he compromised by creating shadow clones for them to walk with, while the original stayed by Sasami and Ryo-oki. To be fair, he didn't mind the attention of the two women, actually he liked it, since rarely had girls showed affection for him, so it was a welcome change. He only hoped that the two would eventually get along better, but for now the clone solution would suffice. Jiraiya looked to his student and godson in amazement. The years had really been good to Naruto in both training and for him in general. In all honesty, Naruto was so much stronger than he was when they left, and now he too was a great shinobi. All the fields he had improved in and gone further than ever expected, thanks to the boy's grandfather. The sage winced, remembering how Katsuhito had come at him with his sword, learning Jiraiya's lack of actions in his grandson's life. The scar wouldn't heal anytime soon. But he knew he deserved it on some level, especially since Naruto was a prefect student with him, always willing to learn and be patient with his training now. He was also happy that the boy had also found girls to see just how good he was. When he first learned of his former crush, he sighed seeing how she treated him. Whereas now he had two beautiful girls at his side who cared for him and were also plenty strong on their own. Ryoko was more of a fighter and had a level of mischief that matched Naruto's in a way, while Aika was more of a diplomat and was calm like Naruto had become, although she could still deal quite a bit of damage with her bamboo barriers. Sasami had become a little sister who he looked after and was also an amazing cook, which was good for Naruto as he was still learning about the art of cuisine from her. And lastly, the cabot Ryo-oki, the little animal, just seemed to love Naruto, especially when he set her in his lap to feed her carrots, which she was addicted to. Heck, Naruto kept carrot seeds with him now just in case. This brought his thought to Naruto's Mokuton ability. He had been shocked seeing the Shadame's ability be used by Naruto and wondered about his heritage a little. He hadn't told him the truth about Kushina's status of a Jinchuriki, which he was going to pay for at a later date. He knew it. On the other hand, with Naruto having the Mokuton ability, it meant he had less trouble controlling the fox, but Naruto, after experiencing the four-tailed stage, swore off using the Kyuubi's power. He had accepted it after the incident when he was training him in the first 6 months. He was now at 3 times of nearly dying. Tsunade, Naruto and Katsuhito. But looking over the boy, you could tell he'd grown both physically and mentally under the care of his family, and now he could see how he now resembled his father, with his hair grown out into a ponytail like Minato. His clothing too had gone over a change. He now wore a long-sleeved navy blue shirt over a tight-fitting mesh shirt, a black flak jacket for extra protection, black pants with a ninja tool pouch strapped onto his right leg, which also had a holster for his new sword, the Tenchi-ken. He also now had a short-sleeved trench coat like his father that was colored dark orange with black flames at the bottom, the Uzumaki symbol at the top of it. Lastly, he had steel-toed boots that were lightweight and a pair of metal knuckle black fingerless gloves with his headband still strapped around his forehead, keeping his bangs from his eyes. Naruto Nai-chan, what is your village like, is it nice? Asked Sasami walking at his side with her happy smile. It's peaceful Sasami-chan, and very large with many tourists coming to see it from over the country, as well as being known as the strongest of the 5 ninja villages. I wonder how much it's changed, though he muttered spotting the large gates just up ahead. Alright, Ryoko-chan, Eika-chan, he called getting the two's attention with their clones, we're about to head into the village, so for now, no massive amounts of destruction okay? If you're good I'll let you both actually walk next to me instead of a clone, their eyes lit up in excitement before sending each other small glares. However he said making them stop, you can't argue over me either, doing so may cause unnecessary problems in the village, trust me on that. For now just try and get along, he said confusing Eika slightly, but Ryoko figured out what he meant he doesn't want us to fight, so people won't know we're close to him and treat us like they will him. Oh Naruto-kun, she thought sadly at the blonde trying his best to make sure they weren't hurt. Are we clear? He asked getting nods. Well, you certainly can handle women very well my student, said a grinning Jiraiya. It's better than constantly getting your lights punched out by an angry Bachan, Iro-senin, he smirked. I told you not to call me that, he said loudly as the girls giggled at the grown man's antics, prove me wrong, and I might, said Naruto waving him off. As they approached the gates they spotted the faces of the two Chunin who were forever on guard duty, Kotetsu and Izumo. I see you got stuck with this again, said Jiraiya greeting them. Oh Jiraiya Sama, you're back, where's the runt you took with you? Asked Kotetsu curious. Right next to him. Kotetsu and I take offense to the runt comment, said the voice of the bane of many ninja for his pranking Naruto, that you got taller fast, commented Izumo lifting the bang that covered one side of his face to get a better look. Well I couldn't stay small forever could I, now here's our papers, said Naruto unsealing his ninja license and letting them check it over, it's all good, but who are the ladies with you, friends you found on the way, Izumo asked. Naruto rubbed his head, actually yes I found them or they found me in a way, anyway we're heading over to Bachan to check them in okay? He asked as the bandaged-faced Chunin nodded. Only you would be ballsy enough to call he by that name Naruto, and good to see you again, the village is too quiet without you, said Kotetsu making Naruto smirk, that'll change soon trust me he said grinning and happy that some people didn't hate him in the village. As they walked off the two Chunin turned to each other, wow those girls were babes, how do you think that Naruto got them, asked Kotetsu, my guess pure dumb luck, he seems to have bucket loads, replied Izumo. Walking through the girls took in the sights of the village, this village is nice, almost reminds me of Jurai, said Eika admiring the people and how close it was to the forest. It's okay, but I'm used to things being more advanced, but it's not all bad, at least the company is good, said Ryoko at Naruto's side, as was Eika now both on a temporary truce. Excuse me for a moment, said Naruto running up a nearby pole and once on top gazed over the side of the village taking a deep breath, I'm back, he muttered smiling slightly. What's Naruto Nai-chan doing, Ryoko Ni-chan? Asked Sasami, just taking in the eights of his home after being gone for 2.5 years, I guess he was a little homesick after all, she explained as she glared slightly at those sending Naruto dirty looks. Jiraiya smiled seeing hat Ryoko was making sure people didn't bother him, she really does like him, that's good as long as he doesn't make her mad he thought remembering her strength when he appeared at the house and she had hit him in frustration. It's a little nostalgic, they even added Bachan to the mountain too, he noted seeing the face of Tsunade next to his father's on the mountain. I preferred the view I have right now, said the voice of Ryoko as she phased next to him almost making him fall, but she grabbed him from behind, making him flush and Eika fume, seeing her get close to Naruto. Ryoko-chan be careful I nearly fell he said thankful and slightly enjoying the feel of her bosom on his back, I'll always be there to catch you Naruto, don't worry about it, she whispered to his ear, making him shiver. Could you please bring us down then Ryoko-chan? He asked as she smiled and phased the two of them to the floor. Ryoko-san, you shouldn't do that Naruto-sama might have injured himself due to your actions, said Eika wanting the woman to let go of Naruto. Hey I'd never let anything happen to him, you know that she defended holding him closer, why you she said before she felt someone touch her shoulder and found a Naruto clone, Eika-chan calm down, she meant no harm and remember no fighting, you too Ryoko-chan, said the clone as the two took a deep breath and Ryoko reluctantly let go. Naruto? Naruto is that you said a familiar voice in front of him and he looked to see his teammate and former crush Sakura Haruno. Looks like I wasn't the only one to change, he thought as he waved slightly, when did you get back Naruto? She asked walking over, just now actually he answered her. Hey Naruto Nai-chan who's this girl with pink hair? Asked Sasami and Sakura now took notice of the other girls by Naruto who could they be? She wondered, oh right, Sasami-chan, this is my teammate Sakura, he told her before facing Sakura with a small smile. Sakura, these are my new friends, Ryoko-chan, Aika-chan, Sasami-chan, and Ryo-oki-chan, he said, as Sakura looked for the fourth person and couldn't find them. Why didn't he use Chan for my name, and why is he using it for them? She thought in slight confusion. Naruto, where's the other person? I can only see 3 other people here. She asked as Naruto picked up a small animal from the floor. This is Ryo-oki-chan, Sakura, say hi Ryo-oki-chan, he said as the cabbit meowed, loving her position in Naruto's arms. Sakura took all her willpower to stop herself from grabbing the little cute animal and hugging it to death at how cuddly it looked, especially in Naruto's arms. Oh Naruto, she's so cute, can I pet her? She asked politely. He nodded and Sakura petted the head of the cabbit as it purred. Oh, she adorable, she said smiling. Finishing her moment, she turned her attention back to Naruto and noticed just how much he had changed. Wow, he's so different and handsome, she thought with a tiny blush. You've gotten taller than me, she noted, saying the first thing that popped into her head that wouldn't seem overly friendly. He chuckled, noticing how he had to look down ever so slightly. I guess I have, he smiled, making her blush again. What do you think? Am I more womanly now? She asked as Aika and Ryoko flared their eyes slightly at the girl. Ryoko more than Aika. It's fine, you haven't changed at all, he answered, simply making Aika and Ryoko chuckle, seeing as Naruto wasn't actively complimenting her, so meaning he didn't much like her, while Sakura got a tick mark in her head. Naruto nice, and Naruto heard a voice and turned to see a puff of smoke which revealed to be a beautiful naked brunette. Warwick no jutsu, she said in a lustful tone. This caused a few reactions. Jiraiya watching had been propelled back with a massive nosebleed. Ryoko was laughing while leaning on Naruto for support. Sasami blushed seeing the naked woman in front of her, while Aika and Sakura went into anger mode, with Sakura raising her arm to hit the boy. Naruto on the other hand looked mildly impressed. The girl puffed in a cloud of smoke to reveal an older-looking Konohamaru still wearing an overly long scarf. How was that? Had some real oomph to it, right? Asked the legacy of the Sandaime Hokage, excited, not caring about the surrounding audience. Naruto chuckled, walking over to him. Konohamaru, you shouldn't use that move anymore. It's slightly offensive to women, but it can be used on undercover missions when it's clothed. Also, here's a technique that might come in handy in the future, he said, slipping him a technique scroll with defensive earth jutsu. Sakura looked impressed at what Naruto had said to the boy. I see he didn't just grow physically, I guess. You finally grew up, Naruto, she thought, watching Naruto teach his student a lesson. Naruto went to whisper to the boy, keep practicing so that it all feels real, then torture your perverted sensei, okay? He nodded happily, seeing his nice and again after so long. Naruto, let's go, we should be heading to report, said Jiraiya, coming back once he had wiped off all of the blood. Yeah, okay Iro-senin, you ready to meet my Bachan girls? He asked, getting happy nods from them all and an affirmative meow from the cabbit on his shoulder now. See you later Konohamaru, he waved, walking with Jiraiya and the others to the Hokage tower. I hope you'll have mastered those techniques soon. Right, till next time Naruto Nai-san, and welcome home, he said, running off to his team. He's a good kid, commented Ryoko, no doubt having Naruto-kun as a teacher, added Aika, smiling at the small boy. Despite the technique he used, wonder if Naruto can do that technique too, wondered Ryoko, thinking how kinky it would be to play with Naruto in female form. Breeks. So Naruto, Sakura began to ask, how did you meet these girls? She asked, curious to the girls walking close to him. Probably doesn't even know they like him, she thought. How wrong she was. I met them by chance when staying at my mother's home, he answered, making her blink in surprise. Wait Naruto, you're an orphan, how can you have your mother's house? Everyone has parents when they're born, Haruno-san. Naruto-sama only found out when he was training with his master, said Aika politely. Besides, without it none of us would have met Naruto-kun, so we thank her spirit for letting us meet him, said Ryoko, hugging his arm. Well, I hope this baka hasn't been too much trouble to all of you. When he was here he was always so annoying, but it's nice to see a change, she said, getting a glare from Ryoko, not knowing why Naruto-kun is never a pest. He actually very considerate and caring. It's not hard to see that, Sakura, said Ryoko a little harshly as they made it to the doors of the office. After knocking they heard a come in, and they all walked through to see the blonde-haired Sannin. Hey Bachan, nice to see you again, he greeted, immediately catching the fist aimed for his head with some effort. I told you don't call me that. Wait, how come you're not imprinted in the wall? She asked, surprised. Hey lady, back off, said an angry Ryoko, not liking the attempted assault on Naruto. Hokage-sama, was there a need to attack Naruto-sama like that? You could have seriously injured him, said Aika as Tsunade took a step back. Wait, who are all of you? She said, shocked at the girls fussing over Naruto. Bachan, these are some friends I met over my training trip, but we'll explain more in private, okay? She nodded, getting back to her seat, impressed at the boy not screaming like he used to. Fine, but really how come the punch didn't work? She asked as he chuckled. My sensei was tough, unlike Iro-senin at times, he responded, confusing Tsunade. Meow, meow Ryooki called to Naruto rubbing her face against his cheek. Oh Ryooki-chan, you hungry? He asked getting a happy meow from the girl. Naruto what's that on your shoulder? Tsunade asked half tempted to scoop up the little animal as Naruto cradled the cabbage and unsealed a carrot for her which he fed to her. Ryooki-chan is another friend with an addiction for carrots, but circa we get on with the reports please he asked. Oh right yes, welcome back Naruto, Jiraiya she greeted as the two smiled, pleasure to be back, Tsunade-sama said Naruto earning gasps at his showing of respect. Well the years were good if you've changed like that just what did you teach him Jiraiya? The man smiled in pride puffing his chest, not much actually, my OG-sen taught me more, Iro-senin just gave me the scrolls to learn from mostly just like that whined as he was belittled by his student. Wait you OG-san, Naruto you still have living relatives? She asked shocked at this revelation yes, both the Iro-senin and the Sandame knew but didn't tell me. OG-san is from my mother's side, but he told me who both my parents were he said seriously as the Hokage gasped at Naruto, knowing the secret of his heritage. Naruto you mean? She started to ask, but he raised his hand, secrets are for behind closed doors Tsunade, and who is watching, he warned her as she nodded and compassed herself. In that case I take it the training worked out well, Jiraiya. She said giving him a look making him sweat I panic of course, Naruto has surpassed all my expectations for his growth and shown me things I would never expect. In that case would you be willing to show us Naruto? He nodded yes I have no problems displaying my abilities, Tsunade, but who would you have test my skills? He questioned. Well I have a certain man you can face, I've kept him off missions for this purpose. You opponent will be she was interrupted by a knock at the door which she responded to by come in. The door opened to see a pineapple-haired teen who Naruto recognized hey there Shikamaru he greeted his old lazy friend, Naruto hey Naruto good to see you, he greeted back with a handshake, looking him over he looks just like the yandere could that mean he pondered. Hey Tamari-san nice to see you too, he said to the ponytailed haired Sunanin. Tamari blinked seeing the familiar blonde hair of the boy who had rescued her brother from himself and his new form which admiring eyes wow, he's not a runt anymore she thought not noticing the looks from the cyan and purple-haired girls in the room. So you're finally back huh? He asked his friend yeah just got back, but I have a new place just outside of Konoha now, so I'll have to show you and the others someday he explained. So you finally dropped the old foolishness and changed? He asked knowing Naruto had indeed changed yeah I have, took my family to make me change for the better he said, remembering his grandfather's words. So Tsunade who is my opponent I doubt it Shikamaru he chuckled seeing as Shikamaru was a great planner, but putting effort into them was another thing. Indeed he isn't your opponent should be here by now, though she muttered a little annoyed, if you mean Kakashi, he's outside the window he said as the window opened for Kakashi to walk through waving his hand with a yo, he greeted not showing surprise at the new faces or Naruto's new look. Hey Kakashi-sensei good to see you, looks as though you haven't changed at all he said, seeing as there was no change at all with the grey-haired Jonin. Naruto did respect the man even though he at times grew annoyed as he hadn't taught him anything so far, expect tree climbing oh by the way I have something for you he said intriguing the one-eyed ninja. Said Kakashi interested as Naruto pulled out a small green book, what you but is, he stuttered wide-eyed seeing the book. The other girls in the room looked curious at the book, wondering what it was about not knowing what the book's genre was. Naruto decided to elaborate for the others, Iro-senin write books as a side job, and I got the advanced copy since I helped with the last one, and Kakashi-sensei loves them. Me on the other hand I find them boring and too smutty he said earning points with them all. Jiraiya snorted think Naruto couldn't see the majesty that was his masterpieces, but smiled seeing Kakashi's reaction who when opened the book, looked like he saw a bright light. Alright enough of that Kakashi, stop reading it or I confiscate he cuddled the book like a child when he heard this, I'll be good he mumbled. So Kakashi when do you want to do this test then? He asked the man who leaned against a wall slipping the book into his pouch and taking a good look at the new additions and took note of how they all looked at Naruto they look at him with affection and care. You still are unpredictable Naruto he thought proudly. Well you see I won't only be testing you Naruto, but Sakura as well he told them, I see so how we fight you will determine what level we are at as a team right Naruto asked, getting a nod from Tsunade yes, I'll decide how to deal with you depending on those results she clarified. Anybody mind if I join in on the fight I love a good scrap now and again? Asked Ryoko besides I'm sure I can handle whatever this go can throw at me she added, actually I wouldn't disagree with that, but we'll see in a moment Ryoko-chan okay? She nodded before he turned to Aika, and don't worry Aika-chan, we'll be sure to work something out for all of us he said, relieving her of the worry that he would take Ryoko and leave her behind. We'll see, now all of you be at training ground 7 by noon, and I mean all of you Kakashi Tsunade warned the man who nodded before existing to get as much reading time as he could as did Sakura, while Naruto stayed behind to explain the situation. Once Sakura had left he took out a seal and placed it on the door as it glowed. "That's a security seal now Tsunade, can I ask your Anbu to come out?" He said seriously. Tsunade didn't know why he had become so serious, but waved her hand as three masked ninja dropped down. "Are these all you Anbu?" She nodded as he vanished and a cry was heard. From the ceiling another masked ninja dropped to the floor unconscious. "Any idea who this guy is?" He said holding up the body. He decided against killing since Sasami was in the room. Ryoko a little dizzy from his use of speed on his shoulder. "No, he's not mine, pass me his mask." He threw her the mask which she inspected finding the kanji "Na" written on it. "Rude bastard has spies around me," she said angrily, before turning to Naruto. "Thanks for bring this to my attention Naruto, but could you please explain what's going on?" she asked. Naruto went on to explain just what happened over the trip, the meeting of his family, the discovery of Ryoko, and the meeting of Aika and Sasami alongside his new blade and heritage. Tsunade had been flabbergasted learning he also now could use her grandfather's Mokuton techniques, which he demonstrated growing some carrots in the room for his little friend. He further explained he knew his heritage and the heritage of the Uzumaki, and told her simply, "I refuse to be treated without respect anymore. If any councilman dares to go after me of my friends, there will be hell to pay from the Daimyo." Learning how Konoha had treated its great ally who still wear the symbol. His words shook her to her core thinking of the backlash that could happen if he was forced to such an act. "Naruto, what you have told me is unbelievable and amazing, but I believe you all the same. And for what it's worth, sorry for not realizing the truth about the Uzumaki, especially since my grandmother was one." She apologized which he accepted smiling. "No worries, it's in the past, but one more thing," he said walking over to the wall with the Hokage portraits and taking down the fourths before cutting his finger and swiping his blood across the wall, unsealing a safety deposit box. Inside were documents for banks and notes on seals among other things. "I'll be taking what's rightfully owed to me. From now on if you need me contact me via birds as I will be living at my mother's estate. If there's an emergency use this." He took out a three-pronged kunai getting gasps of amazement. "Naruto, you learned the Hiraishin." He put on his fox-like grin, "Mastered it actually. I'll be putting a seal in my old apartment so I can teleport if need with the others here. Now on another note, I'd like to have Ryoko and Aika stay by my side on missions. Well, not ninja, they have abilities no one else can do and are plenty strong on their own. I'd like them to take the test with tomorrow too." He requested, making Tsunade consider the pros and cons of such an act. On the one hand the team would have too many members and set off the balance, but on the other, she had no doubt what Naruto had told her of their abilities was the truth, so could see the benefit of it. Alright, but as long as they are on the team they can't argue otherwise they're gone and have to stay out of ninja business, is that understood? Both piped up with a yes, not wanting the other to spend too much time with Naruto. "In that case this meeting is over and I'll see you tomorrow Naruto, remind me to visit your house and Oji-san at some point." "Okay," she said, letting the seriousness drop from the room. "Sure thing Bachan, and it's good to see you again after so long," he said smiling as he left the room with the others following. "Hey Naruto, you surely do makes things interesting for yourself and others, don't you? But I think I need to consult my family records. If he had the Mokuton ability only Tenzo knows how to do that and he hasn't so the ability to grow plants and vegetables only large amounts of wood," she said to herself. "Where are we going now Naruto Nai-chan?" asked Sasami as they left the building now with Ryoko resting on her head. "To a place I always used to eat at when I lived here Sasami-chan," he said as they made their way to Ichiraku's Raymond stand. "Hey old man Tucci, you ready to feed your favorite customer?" said Naruto walking into the restaurant. "Naruto, my boy, you're back. Good to see you after so long. Come out here and see who's back," he called to the back as his daughter came out. "Who is it dad?" she asked before laying eyes on Naruto. "Naruto," she exclaimed happily running round the counter to hug him. "It's wonderful to see you back," she said happy to see her little brother back. "Glad to be back Ni-chan," he said smiling. "Girls, these are Tucci and Ni, some of the best people in Konoha and makers of some of the best ramen in the country," he said as the girls smiled seeing the interaction. My Naruto coming here with all these girls, you lucky son of a gun," chuckled Tucci. "Nice to meet you all, I take it you're Naruto's friends?" he asked as they all took their seats. "Yeah, we met Naruto-kun not long ago, but we could say he's already a big part of our life," said Ryoko. "I agree with Ryoko-san. Naruto-sama is very important to us and has told us things about your establishment," Tucci-san said. Aika. You choose some interesting girls Naruto. So what are you eating?" asked "Bring us 4 miso ramen please, one with extra carrots for Ryoko-chan," he said as the cabbit perked up hearing the word carrot. Immediately she was scooped up by "Oh what a cute little animal, Naruto, is she yours?" he chuckled seeing her reaction. "She's Ryoko's but we all love her," he said. "Also could you bring some sake too," he said, making Ryoko look at him with stars in her eyes. "Well, that's a good order considering this is your comeback meal," smiled Tucci as he began preparing the noodles and broth. "So Naruto, you gonna introduce us at He pointed to each of the girls, the mischievous-looking one is Ryoko-chan, next to her is Aika-chan, and next to me is her sister Sasami-chan. I only met them recently at my mother's clan home, and they decided to come back with me, he said as they all smiled. Wait, you figured out who your mother was? Naruto, who was she? Asked Tucci. A woman by the name of Kushina, he told him, and he gasped slightly, remembering the tomboy who was always in his stand inhaling Raymond, and saw the similarities between them now. I can't believe I never saw it, she was my best customer before you came along, Naruto. Can't believe I never made the connection, said Tucci, remembering the hot-headed tomboy who had the verbal tick like Naruto did. It's fine, my Oji-san told me all about her, so I'm fine, he waved him off, happy that he shared his love of Raymond with his mother. As Tucci served up the food, he could only look in happiness at Naruto's new friends, as the way he was smiling was real, nothing faked, which they had learned to recognize a long time ago. He was surprised to see the little blonde boy grow into the man before him now, and from the girl's looks one that was loved. Naruto, you did it, you found someone to see the real you. You make an old man proud, and no doubt your mother would love them too, maybe that Ryoko more, since they seem similar, he thought to himself as he brought the sake over. Nothing like a cup of sake to end the day well, said Ryoko, pouring hers, Naruto and Aika's cups, but also one for Tucci and Am. Join us you two, I think you deserve it, she told them, raising the cups. Sure, why not, said Am, taking hers and passing over her father's cup. Cheers everyone for the return of Naruto and his new friends, said Tucci as they raised their cups and downed the warm alcohol. The hot sake sent shivers down their spines as it hit their throats, and Am, having a low tolerance, was already rosy-cheeked, whereas Naruto and Ryoko weren't affected due to their unique bodies. Looks like she can't handle it. Surprised you can though, Aika thought you'd be the same as her, commented Ryoko as the girl huffed. Shows what you know, often I had to practice for dinners with my mother and father, and sake was served so I can handle it, thank you very much, she said, pouring herself another. Well, at least Naruto-kun can handle it too, any chance of a drinking contest anytime soon? Ryoko asked, pouring him another, while Sasami sat happily with her water, never really liking the smell of sake. We'll see, Ryoko-chan, knowing the two of us we'd need a fair bit, he chuckled, downing another. How was your Raymond, Sasami-chan? He asked the little girl, feeding the carrot pieces to Ryoko as hers had the extra carrots. It was nice, Naruto Nai-chan, I'd love to try and cook this myself. Tucci-san, could I please have the recipe? She asked with her ever so cute voice. Tucci couldn't resist as he brought out his cookbook. Here you go, Sasami-chan, take good care of it. Maybe one day I'll see if you can think of a new flavor to add to my menu, he said to her as she smiled, accepting the book. Before long the sake was gone as the three of them, still drinking, were only slightly buzzed. Well, time to pay up. Here you go, Tucci, he said, handing over the Ryo for his meals. Naruto, you don't have to pay, I was gonna let this one be on the house, he offered, as Naruto shook his head. Just consider it, thanks for always being there, he told him, putting the bills in his hand. You ready for home, girls? He said as Aika and Ryoko hugged his arms while Sasami was on his back, having gotten tired and snuggled into it. Ryoko, taking her place on his head, also tuckered out. Yeah, let's head back, I could use a good rest before the test tomorrow, said Rook, pushing her assets in his arm, electing a small blush, but you couldn't much tell, thanks to the sake. Indeed, a good sleep will aid us for tomorrow, but Naruto-sama, what can we expect from that one-eyed teacher of yours? Asked Aika. Well, he began to explain the man's quirks as they made it to his old apartment, and he made the teleportation seal to get back to the house, before sealing his house door to keep people out. Breaks. The next day Naruto, Ryoko and Aika stood in the field that he had taken the True Genin exam with Sakura and Sasuke. It brought back memories, thinking of how much of a fool he used to be, but also of how he was back then, desperate for attention. Sasami had been taken to the side by Shizune, who was happy to look after her while the test went on. She found it cute how the little girl said she wasn't worried about Naruto as he was really strong. She also loved the little cabbit and was tempted to cuddle it, but remembered she had Tuntun in her arms. Aika had ordered Azaka and Kamadik to watch over her too. So what exactly are we going to be doing on this test, Naruto-kun? Asked Ryoko, a little curious. Ryoko and Aika are wearing the battle clothes seen in episode 6 of the OVA, as she and Aika stood by the wooden poles. Not too sure, but if I had to guess, he was cut off by a call of "Oi Naruto" from Sakura as she made her way onto the scene. He waved a little before turning back to the girls, ticking her off slightly. Kakashi enjoys messing with people like he did with the bell test. Looking at it, he'll most likely do the bell test again, in hopes of throwing us off since we did so badly at it last time, he told her as she nodded. Naruto-sama, just how strong is Kakashi-san? Asked Aika, curious of her opponent. Well, Kakashi-sensei is known throughout the village as one of its best jonin and is an A-rank ninja. His abilities are diverse, but he favors ninjutsu, for which he has several thanks to his implanted Sharingan eye. Thankfully my new jutsu he can't copy and you two don't use chakra, so I think we'll all manage, he smiled, as did the other two, seeing his confidence. Sakura meanwhile stood in awe seeing Naruto explain the situation to the new girls in his life. There was no boasting, no over-exaggeration, no nothing, just a simply explanation, while keeping the mood light. How is it he has changed so much? What happened to the loud obnoxious Naruto that hung around me like a lost puppy? Thought Sakura. Does he really always have his nose in that book too? Questioned Ryoko as Naruto sighed. Yeah, he does. Try and get it off him, he suggested as she smirked, with pleasure. Sakura at the side stood just on her own, not really finding any chance to interject between their conversation. The feeling of isolation was disinheriting to her, but in some level she wondered if she deserved it. For all the time Naruto had tried to be her friend and looked after her, she never gave him the time of day, and now he was with people who actually were interested in him too, not to mention better looking than her. I guess after everything I got left behind again, and once again it's my own fault, she thought as Kakashi made his appearance. Yo, he greeted in his usual style. Are we all ready for the test today? He asked and saw grins on all their faces. You bet, since you don't stand a chance against us, said Ryoko, ready to charge her energy sword. Why, she's certainly spirited, Naruto, almost reminds me of you, commented Kakashi, giving an eye smile. I'll take it as a compliment, Kakashi-sensei. Brings back memories, this place, doesn't it? He said, patting the post he'd been tied to. Yeah, back in the days of Team 7, now for those who haven't done this test before, your objective is these, he said, taking out 4 bells. You can use anything at your disposal to get them, and remember, Naruto cut him off, come at you with intent to kill, he said. Naruto-sama isn't that dangerous, knowing the amount of damage Ryoko-san can do, said Aika, not wanting to hurt the man too much. It's either that or he'll read porn all the way through this changed her tune as she glared at him. Ryoko-san, how about a little wager, she said, perking the woman interest as she phased next to her. What do you got? First to get their bell and get the book is the winner, loser has to follow one request perfectly, as long as it is within reason. Naruto-sama will decide if the request is acceptable, said Aika, issuing the challenge. Oh, I like that idea, you're on, Aika, she said, getting a predatory look in her eye. Sakura had put on her battle face and slipped on her gloves. Don't forget about me now, she said. Wouldn't dream of it, Sakura, you're part of this team, and a team sticks together, said Naruto as reached for the Tenchi-ken. This made Sakura smile, seeing as Naruto still saw them as a team. Somehow I don't think I'll be able to read during this test, in fact I might have to get serious, muttered Kakashi, lifting his headband. I'm not disagreeing, care to start us off, said Naruto. Actually yes, let's begin, he said as Naruto was in front of him throwing a punch. Only years of experience helped Kakashi as he ducked and flipped away so fast, almost like sensei, he thought, as he then found himself surrounded by small pieces of bamboo, which sprouted vines to grab him. He managed to avoid them by disappearing in a puff of smoke. Knew he's used shadow clone, muttered Naruto. Damn, where'd he go? Said Ryoko, looking all around for him below. Shouted Sakura as she slammed her fist into the ground, breaking it up. There he is, Mokuton. Shichiro no Jutsu, said Naruto as tree roots erupted round Kakashi, making a small prison around him. Sakura went wide-eyed seeing the Shadame's fabled wood style. Kakashi was equally shocked but broke out of it as he charged his hand with lighting chakra and severed the bars of his prison before jumping high into the air. Bad choice, the air is where I love to fight, said Ryoko, phasing next to him and landing a punch to his face, shooting him straight into the ground. However, once he hit he went puff, revealing shattered remains of a log. Thank the log, if that hit I could very well be done for, and there's no chakra, that's pure physical strength, thought Kakashi, hiding at the side. Erg, thought I had him, she muttered, disappointed. Too bad, smirked Aika as she looked round for the gray-haired man to win the bet. Girls, be careful, he might try Jinjutsu on you, so beware, he warned, seeing as Aika and Ryoko were at risk since they didn't use chakra were unable to break out of it them. Thank you for the concern, Naruto-sama, but be careful yourself, said Aika. Eventually Kakashi jumped out the trees by the lake and rapidly went through several signs. Suiton. Suiton no Jutsu, he called as the water swirled and took on the form of a dragon. Ryoko-chan, swords, exclaimed Naruto as he took out the Tenchi-ken, activating it, while Ryoko made her beam blade. As the dragon came close, both swung with their sword, cleaving the water construct in two. The two rushed forward to engage Kakashi, who took out a kunai in each hand to defend, only to find that the blades cut through his metal tools like butter. Kami, this is unbelievable, speed, strength and a blade akin to the Nidame's Raijin, let alone his use of Mokuton, Kakashi thought in slight fear. Urina-san, if I corner Kakashi-san when he is off guard, do you think you can attack him while distracted, said Aika to Sakura, knowing from Naruto teamwork always worked best. Yes, Aika-san, just leave it to me, she said, proudly pumping her fist. As Kakashi was using his Sharingan in overdrive to avoid the blades, he found that Naruto's form was amazing. The stance was quick, powerful and precise, but let his move around to find an opening. The come so far, sensei would be proud, he thought as the two jumped back and Kakashi felt himself restrained by bamboo vines via Aika before hearing a loud shanro from Sakura above him. He could only mutter shit as he watched her fist come down smack the Jonin in the stomach launching into the trees. Naruto smirked going through Seal's Mokuton. Karajiran no Jutsu, Black Forest Technique. In the forest black roots surrounded Kakashi forming a spherical cage for him that also went underground to stop him escaping that way. The black wood was weaker but flammable as it secreted oil, so if Kakashi used a lightning technique to get out he set himself on fire. Right now while Kakashi tries to figure his way out the trap I set, I have a plan to get those bells quick said Naruto heralding the girls over with his plan. Meanwhile Kakashi was currently struggling in his cage and saw how much trouble it would be. While I'm really annoyed at this, I have to say it's a pretty good trap. Kinda makes me wish I listened when Asuma was telling me about mind manipulation still. I had my book he said, currently carving his way out with his kunai. By the time he the sun had started setting Kakashi had finally carved his way out of his prison, not to self-learn more wind jutsu he muttered as the hairs on the back of his head stood up as he instantly jumped back as a ball of energy was blasted where he was standing and the four jumped out at him. Hey Kakashi the secret ending of Icha tactics is that the main cha Kakashi looked in horror as his student was about to spoil the ending of the new book he hadn't finished. He did the only thing he could, he covered his ears, but then realized something oh no, with my Sharingan I can read his lips, he thought closing his eyes, refusing to have the plot be spoiled. After about a few seconds he was sure he was finished so opened his eyes and moved his hands away from his ears, only to hear the sound of bells jingling. He then spotted that they all had managed to grab the bells from his waist, but then also saw that Ryoko was giggling while reading from the green book that should be in his pouch, while Leika looked slightly miffed as Ryoko had narrowly gotten the book first. Hey give that back he cried running over to Ryoko, but she smirked phasing through a tree and in his blind rush, making Kakashi run into it. Naruto couldn't help but laugh with Sakura seeing this, but realized the joke was done. Ryoko-chan please give it him back, it was his gift he said, asking which she nodded to throwing it to the man who caught it and held it to his chest like a lost child had come back to him. Well Leika looks like I win she smirked like a cat, and as for my request, I get to hug Naruto-kun as much as I want without you saying anything she said as Leika went red in fury. You can't be serious Ryoko-san she shouted as the woman wagged her finger. TSK Eika lady such as yourself not holding up to her word after all you started this, Ryoko said as Eika puffed up her cheeks. Fine she muttered like a child would, but only hugging nothing else she added. I'm fine with that she said getting behind the blonde and hugging him close to her body, besides hugging leads to so many things eventually, she smirked seeing the flushed face of Naruto as her current outfit left nothing to imagination and all of it he could feel against his back. Both Eika and Sakura fumed while Kakashi was giggling watching the scene. Well I guess Jiraiya was right you really have improved Naruto, also it looks like you weren't wrong about your friends. If Kakashi was having trouble well that says enough, but that blade of yours before was something though, said Tsunade walking out with Shizune and Sasami, the later running toward Naruto to hug him from the front. Naruto Nai-chan you look so cool out there she said happily while the cabot on her head jumped to his shoulder to nuzzle his neck. Thanks Sasami-chan, Ryoko-chan. But I couldn't have done as well without your sister and Ryoko-chan, they were a big help alongside Sakura, he said, making Eika look thankful, but was still miffed as there was no Naruto left to hug. Well I've seen all I needed to see, Kakashi, from now on you, and these three are Team 7, and tomorrow you will start missions alright, said Tsunade, making them all smile. We free to go Ba-chan? Asked Naruto getting a nod, good come on girls let's head back home, but I think we'll get some sake to celebrate nearby he said, getting a cheer from Ryoko. Little did they know that later that night the Kazuki Gaara was captured by Akatsuki members Deidara and Sasori. Luckily it wouldn't be long before help was sent to them. Breaks. The next morning when they were about to receive their first mission, news of Gaara being captured and aid being requested was given to Tsunade, and she immediately put Team 7 on the mission to rescue Kazuki. As they all stood at the front gate Naruto turned to Tsunade, look after Sasami-chan Ba-chan okay, we'll do our best to save Gaara from the Akatsuki he said determined and ready to save his brother. No problem Naruto now get moving it should take a day to get to Sunna, so there's no time to waste she informed them. Actually we might have a quicker way voiced Ryoko. What is it Ryoko-san? Said Tsunade who liked the woman as she was a little like her, a heavy drinker, good looking and strong, the only thing was she was thousands of years old and didn't show it. Ryoko-chan should be able to get us there in a few hours if she's ready she explained as Naruto looked to his furry friend. Ryoko-chan, do you think you could transform into the ship so we can save my friend? He asked a cabot who meowed happily and went over to Ryoko who threw her in the air and as she did the little cabot suddenly bulged out and became the ship Naruto had rode that night. Thank you Ryoko-chan, everyone let's get inside and move said Naruto as they all nodded. Kakashi was surprised how quickly he took charge as they were all lifted into the ship and Ryoko took the helm as they sped off into the sky, then in the direction of Sunna. Breaks. Meanwhile at the Akatsuki hideout the image of Pain, the leader of the group, went through the seals before slamming his hands to the floor. Kuchiyus no Jutsu he called as the monstrous Jito statue erupted from the ground in front of the unconscious body of Gaara. On the 10 fingers of the statue the members of the organization took their position in order of their ring. Are all members ready for the extraction process? This will take 3 days and nights to complete, informed the leader to the mission in. He received a hi from all members present. Can we hurry this up? I hate to be kept waiting and I want to get this over, said Sasori in his hunched over state, still annoyed at the fight he had to partake in with the Sunna puppeteer. Don't worry Sasori-sama, we'll bet this done in no time at all, and then I can show my art to the world again, said the blonde-haired bomber to his partner in art as he made a small butterfly firework. Very well, let's begin. We must get it done before aid for Sunna arrives to rescue the Jinchuriki, said Pain as 9 dragon heads emerged from the statue's mouth and began draining Gaara of his chakra and Biju. Breaks. As they sped ahead in the ship, the team from Konoha had picked up Tamari as she was making her way back and had been informed on the situation, to which she was thankful for the pickup in the flying ship. How long before we arrive, Ryoko-chan? Asked Naruto over her shoulder, watching as she piloted the strange crystal ship. Hour or 2 at best if we don't want to be seen. We'll drop by the edge of the city. Good thing we have these systems, or I wouldn't have an idea where we are going, she said, keeping her eyes on the ship controls. Thanks Ryoko-chan for everything, he muttered, letting her know how much this meant to him. No problem Naruto-kun, you mean a lot to me, and I'll do anything to help you, she told him, making him hug her from behind, quickly getting a couple stares and a smirk from Ryoko. Naruto-sama, what can we expect from these Akatsuki members and what do they want? Asked Aika, making Naruto kick himself as he hadn't told her or Sasami about the Kyuubi yet, but it was better to tell her now. Akatsuki is a group of about 8 S-ranked missing nin, all united under one gal world domination, he said, earning a gasp from the princess. To do this in groups of 2, the ninja are sent to capture people known as Jinchuriki, meaning the power of human sacrifice. A Jinchuriki is a container of a destructive beats known as a Biju, of which there are 9. The 9 beats were spread out amongst the other countries, their identities used to ward off other countries from attacking, he sighed as he moved to the next part. A Jinchuriki is basically a human weapon, however we are not treated as human or weapon. But as demons who would attack for no reason. As a result, no Jinchuriki has ever seemed to have had a good life. I know this as I myself am a Jinchuriki, Aika-chan, I hold the strongest, the Kyuubi. As he told her, he half expected her to call him names but was relieved as she wrapped her arms round him. Oh Naruto-sama, how can this be? You are too nice to be called a demon, the people who call you that are fools, she said, bringing him to tears as he was thankful. Thank you Aika-chan, you have no idea how much that means to me, he said, hugging back. Tamari at the side looked happily as Naruto was given comfort for his own pain, like he had done for her brother a couple years ago. No man is a mountain, hope she takes care of him, he needs it more than most, she thought, smiling. Sakura was a little peeved at the sight as Aika comforted Naruto when she herself was going to do that. First he hugs the Ryoko woman and now her, he seemed to be attracted to me anymore, she thought, a little irked but slightly glad that the woman didn't back away from him, scared of his status. Breaks. It didn't take long for the ship to arrive near the gates of Sunna, although many were panicking seeing the huge flying ship overhead, scared it was another attack. Imagine their surprise as several figures dropped from the ship and the ship suddenly shrinking in size to a small little animal. Baki was relieved to see Tamari with the group, meaning it was the backup forces from Konoha, especially since the group had arrived so quickly. Tamari-senpai, called the voice of Mitsuri, the first student of Gaara, who ran over to them with Baki. Tamari-senpai, come quick, Kankuro-senpai is in trouble, he was picked up not too long ago, she said, as Tamari's eyes widened hearing this. What happened, Mitsuri? She asked her, a little frantic, grabbing the girl's shoulders as the girl pointed in the direction of the hospital. Kankuro-senpai was brought back, trying to bring Gaara-sama back from the people who took him. He's been poisoned and we don't know how to cure him, she answered her. Damn it, first Gaara on now Kankuro, Tamari said angrily, her fists trembling in rage, only to have Kakashi grab her shoulder. Tamari, calm down, Sakura has been trained in medical techniques, so I have full confidence that she'll be able to help you, brother. Tamari nodded while Naruto picked up Ryoko, who nuzzled into his shirt. Her transforming and trip had tuckered her out as it was her first time shifting to ship form since she was reborn not long ago. Thank Ryoko-chan, you've been a big help, said Naruto to the cabbit, who meowed at him happily. Naruto-sama, we should follow your sensei to the hospital so we may obtain some information on the assailants' direction when they left this place. I doubt we could track footprints with all this and about, voiced Aika to Naruto, who nodded, seeing the logic. Yes, I agree. For now we learn what we can before seeing if there's anything we can pick on to track them at all. But more importantly is that Kankuro is freed from the poison in his system. Now let's go. Both Aika and Ryoko nodded and followed the others as they made their way to the hospital. Breaks. While Sakura went about tending to the poison inflicted upon him by Sasori of the Red Sand, Naruto was approached by Mitsuri, remembering her from the last time he saved Gaara. "Naruto-san, thank you for coming so quickly to help us find Gaara-sama," she said with a bow. "Mitsuri, right?" She nodded at the question as he smiled. "You don't need to bow to me, no matter what I would come back to save Gaara. We are brothers in all but blood and I would do anything to save him, Mitsuri-san. As soon as we get a lead from Kankuro we'll go and get him back, that I promise you," he said. Mitsuri had tears in her eyes as she hugged him, shocking him a little, but putting a hand on her head. "Thank you, Naruto-san. Gaara-sama talks about you a lot when he was my sensei. He talks about how you showed him the way and helped him realize his path to becoming the Kazekage," she said as he chuckled. "Really didn't think I had that much of an effect on him. Still, I'm told I have a way with people, although it seems you see Gaara with more than just respect, huh?" he asked as she came out of the hug blushing. "He looks as though Gaara has a nice girl after him," then her face became redder as he said this. "When we get him back, stick by him. I became as strong as I did with my precious people standing by him. So when he gets back, try your best to become close to him. Gaara needs it more than most, really," he told her as she gave a brief nod, running off to border patrol. "You really do have a way with words, Naruto-kun," said Ryoko, teleporting behind Naruto and wrapping her arms round his neck, Ryuoki jumping from her shoulder to his. Aika was watching Sakura heal Kankuro with interest, leaving Ryoko to find Naruto. Just calming her nerves, she was his first student and she clearly cares for him. "It's probably difficult with Gaara being the Kazekage now, so I just gave her a little push," he smiled as Ryoko nuzzled his cheek with her own. "That's why I love you, Naruto-kun, you're always looking out for others and trying to make them happy. It's a charm that brings people close together like it sadly did for Oju-chan back when we were at home," she said as Naruto turned his head away, remembering the cabin. "I have no idea what you're talking about," he said, not meeting Ryoko's eyes, as if he looked he would have to face the deadly puppy dog eyes and would crumble under the technique. "Fine, but there's no use in avoiding the subject. However, I got to ask, what's the plan for facing these Akatsuki guys? They're really tough, right?" she asked him, turning serious. "The way I see it, one is an explosive expert and the other poisons, so it's difficult to plan how to fight them. From what I could hear, the poison used was quite unique and complex, so creating an antidote will be difficult, and if we have the necessary herbs for it. Most likely Sakura will fight the poison master with a few of us as backup. You and me will go after the mad bomber since you can fly, and if we get him to the ground we can trap him," he told her as she nodded in agreement. "What else do you think will come up?" Ryoko asked Naruto, resting her chin on his shoulder. "I doubt they wouldn't have any backup, since sealing the beasts is a big operation." She was reminded of the numerous times where her pursuers or prey had backup near, since they knew she'd be coming. "Most likely another member to slow us down. Problem is we barely know much about their members, except knowing each of them are classed as S-rank Nukenin. The ones I know are an illusion specialist and a powerhouse that looks like a shark man, although I'd like to see his sword match mine now." Naruto smirked, thinking of cutting Samahade clean in two. "So, we'd better get ready then once Pinky is finished fixing the makeup boy," said Ryoko as Naruto nodded to her. "This'll be the first real battle since my training finished. To be honest, I'm a little anxious about it. Whether or not I'm actually strong enough to protect myself and the others," he said, looking out the window into the sky. "Wonder if she'd be proud of me, my Kasan," he muttered to himself, grasping the sword in his hand. "You mean Kushina, right?" Ryoko asked as Naruto nodded. She came by the entrance to the cave a few times when she was younger. She was a little tomboy, really so full of energy. "I think we could have been friends if I had been free at the time. From what I remember, she came not long after she got married to your dad. It was the last time she came to the cave. I think she was drawn in like you were. But trust me when I say she would be proud of you, you are her legacy after all." She smiled, which he returned as he put his hands over hers. "Thanks, Ryoko-chan. I hope she's watching me from her place in heaven and sees that I have such beautiful girls at my side now," he said, making her hold him closer. "And I'm lucky enough to be at your side as well, Naruto. We all are, even Aika. Although she'll still have to get in line for you though," Ryoko thought to herself as the two walked to make sure they had everything and get everyone. Breaks. After extracting the poison from Kankuro's system and obtaining a piece of Sasori's cloak, the team of Konoha and Naruto's girls were set to go. "Wait," called a voice from on top the building above the ninja, ready to leave. The voice turned out to be the old lady Chiyo from before, and she jumped down, landing flat on her face, causing a few of them to sweat drop at seeing it. "Wait, I'm coming with you," Chiyo said, stepping forward to the Konoha ninja. "You sure you can keep up, old lady? I'm not sure we need to slow down cause you busted a hip," said Ryoko, not particularly wanting the old lady near her when it was an important mission. "I may be old, but I can keep up. Besides, it's been several years since I saw my grandson, so I might as well use this opportunity," Chiyo replied as Aika sneaked over to Ryoko's side. Are you sure you should be accosting someone for their age, Ryoko-san? After all, you are MFPH. Aika's mouth was covered by Ryoko, who gave her a glare for attempting to reveal her age to people. She never liked being over 2,000 years old, even if she looked great for it. Not one word, Aika. Ryoko said, her voice strained in her attempts to not throttle the girl for the crack at her person. Seems my age won't hold us back as much as you two running your mouths at each other, Chiyo said, looking at the two, making the two women separate from each other, and Naruto sigh a little. I said no fighting, you two, we can't afford to waste time, and I need you both to watch each other's backs, said Naruto, seriously, making the two nod in agreement. Since they were in a serious mission, it wasn't time for petty squabbling, that could be done later. Sorry Naruto-sama, we apologize for our behavior. Please let us set out to find Gaara-sama, Aika said with a small bow and apology. Agreed, the sooner the better, said Kakashi near the gates as the group quickly began speeding off, Ryoko holding onto Naruto's head tightly as they went. She was a little worried she'd be in the way, but felt she needed to go with them just in case. Spreeks. The group had been running non-stop toward the land of rivers where the scent was leading them, Naruto way out in front, with Ryoko and Aika being the only one keeping up. Kakashi knew he wanted to get there as fast as he could, but was a little surprised that Naruto was keeping such a cool head, despite knowing that usually Naruto would be calling for them to speed up. Instead, he was setting a pace for them but not going in alone. He did learn patience after all. Seems strange in a way, Kakashi mused to himself, catching the attention of Chiyo. Kakashi, why is that boy seemingly moving ahead of us so much despite you being the Jonin here? Asked Chiyo, a little curious to the blonde-haired youth. He seemed to give off a powerful aura she hadn't seen in some time, not even the Yondaime Kazuki gave off that kind of aura. Naruto-kun is like Gaara, he's a Jinchuriki, he said, making the elder's eyes widen. When he first met Gaara, the two of them were at each other's throats in a way. But Naruto has a gift, you see, actually he has a couple of them. But what I mean is that Naruto was able to change Gaara from a bloodthirsty maniac into the Kazuki you have today. Naruto taught him the true power of bonds and the strength you receive from protecting them, he said with pride, seeing how Naruto had the same charisma as his father did. You say he's a Jinchuriki, no doubt the Kyuubi if rumor proves true, she stated, getting a small nod from Kakashi. Naruto, he is interesting, but these girls by his side are a little more so. Usually Jinchuriki are fairly seen as loners with few wishing to be round them, she said out loud as Kakashi's eyes dropped slightly. He was alone, he only met them a couple months ago. Sad to say, Naruto has been alone for a lot of his life, even kept from his family till he turned 14. Even I kept a distance in a way, when he was younger all he wanted was attention for who he was and not what he contained. Looking now it seems that has changed, said Kakashi, remembering first laying eyes on the new Naruto and being able to tell he'd grown up. To be honest though, I doubt that he'll ever feel alone ever again now. They aren't the only girls interested in him from what I've seen in the village, he a little lucky in that sense, Kakashi said as he suddenly felt a chakra signature. Kakashi-sensei, we have a pretty big signature up ahead, and I recognize it too, it's not a friendly one, said Naruto as he and the girl slowed down a little. I know Naruto, how are you when it comes to Jinjutsu now? Asked Kakashi, figuring who the chakra signature belonged to. Oji-san taught me to fight blind, but I can dispel most illusions now, and I have a backup just in case one does get me hard, he explained as they came out into an opening in the field. Itachi Uchiha, it's been a long time, said Naruto, spotting the black-haired member of Akatsuki. Indeed it has, Naruto-kun, you seem to have changed quite a bit since we last saw you. You got to Sunna very quickly as well, mind explaining how you did that? The perpetrator of the clan massacre asked Naruto, who reached for the Tenchi Ken. Not really, Itachi, but mind explaining why your signature is only half your own? Naruto asked back, getting raised eyebrows from the others who noticed the same thing except for Ryoko and Aika, who stood by Naruto's side, the former creating her energy sword. You really have improved, but I won't answer you if you won't answer me. Now I'm afraid you and your group will not be moving from here, the others right now will be busy sealing the Ichibi from the Kazuki, said Itachi in his normal neutral tone to the group. Itachi, do you know where Orochimaru is? You were his partner before he left Akatsuki, right? Surely you have an idea, asked Sakura, wanting to find some information on the Snake Sannin to find Sasuke. Orochimaru and I have not spoken since he left the organization, but I am aware that my little brother is being trained by him right now. Not that it really matters to me, so will you all back down? Itachi asked, only to jump back as Naruto was in front of him in an instant swing, a blue energy blade at him, a few hairs being cut as he swung. I can't back down right now, Itachi, move aside before I kill you, he said, holding the blade out in his stance. Not today, Naruto-kun, but have you forgotten about my eyes? He asked as he looked into Naruto's blue eyes, casting his Jinjutsu over the boy. Only as he did he felt his sense scream to get away, so substituted with a log that quickly was exploded by an orange blast. Looking round he saw the cyan-haired woman that was standing next to Naruto holding out her hand that was creating another ball of energy. Before he could move again he heard a popping sound as the Naruto that he casted his genjutsu over went up in smoke and Itachi found himself restrained and unable to move as he spotted several bamboo logs floating around him holding him in place. "Seems Konoha has obtained some valuable ninja in the 3 years I last saw you," muttered Itachi to himself as he felt something being pressed into him back from behind him. "They aren't with Konoha, Itachi. And by the way, next time I see your brother I'm making your beating look like a friendly spar," said Naruto pressing the Futon-powered Rasengan into his back and spotted a small grin on his face before Itachi was blasted away and ended up forming a crater in the ground. "Well, that was quick," said Ryoko lowering her arm, dispelling the energy orb that would have been thrown at Itachi. "Wasn't he the big bad guy that took out an entire clan in a single night? Seemed a little easy time," she said aloud. "I agree, Itachi is S rank and he didn't even attempt to use his Mangekyo Sharingan at all, it seems odd. However, it seems your skills hold up well, Naruto, most people wouldn't have been able to see that first attack coming," said Kakashi, praising Naruto's skills for taking down the Itachi. They discovered that the Itachi they killed was a council member of Sunna who had clearly been used as a sacrifice to create the Itachi clone. The group quickly set off after explaining that Akatsuki needed to extract all the Biju for their plan to succeed and also what happens when they are extracted from their hosts. Hearing that it would mean his death, Ryoko and Aika swore silently to never let them catch Naruto. "Breeks. We have a problem," said the voice of the human Venus flytrap Zetsu as his projection still stood on his finger of the ceiling statue. The group of Konoha ninja is approaching faster than expected, it seemed Itachi was unable to slow them down at all, the cannibal said, alternating between his two voices. "Oh, so you had trouble, did you, Itachi? That is slightly unexpected of you, although I had trouble with my own group of Konoha ninja to deal with. Seems the green beast guy has a well-deserved title," said the voice of Itachi's partner Kisame. "It appears that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki Uzumaki Naruto has vastly improved his ability to fight since we last met. He was able to close the distance between us in an instant and almost take my head off with a strange chakra blade he processed. There are also 2 girls with him who appear very powerful despite not having tapped into their chakra networks from what I saw," Itachi explained to him, comrades each taking it in. "This is unexpected. Regardless, we continue with the plan of sealing the Ichibi, we will discuss the problem later. Deidara, Sasori, if possible render the Kyuubi Jinchuriki unconscious, if you do the plan will be achieved faster," said the voice of the ripple-eyed leader Pain. "I'm sure my art will knock him out, Oi Itachi, what is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki like? Any feature of things we should know, asked the blonde bomber Deidara. "Don't blink and don't make him mad, his chakra levels have grown considerably since 3 years ago. I'd suggest not underestimating him or the 2 women who don't wear headbands," he said as he went back to concentrating on the sealing process. Unknown to all but a few, there was someone else listening in on the conversation as the sealing took place. "So Uzumaki is a lot stronger now, it won't matter, he can't stop the plan now, although this chakra blade may be worth investigating," wondered a dark-haired individual as he seemed to spiral away to nothing. Breeks. It took a few hours, but the group managed to find the source of the scent that Kakashi's Pakin had been tracking. They arrived shortly after Guy's team did. "Yo Kakashi, seems you aren't as late as usual," said Guy in his usual upbeat tone. Niji, Tenten and Lee looked over the other team and were surprised to see the new Naruto alongside his 2 companions. "Naruto-kun, you're back, it's so good to see you after so long," waved Lee, now looking more like a Guy clone more than ever, all he needed was the jaw. "Hey Lee, good to see you too, seems like your fire is still burning bright." "Hey Niji, Tenten, nice to see you as well." Naruto gave a small wave before looking up at the boulder blocking the way. "Kakashi-sensei, this is a 5-point barrier if I remember right," said Naruto as Kakashi nodded in agreement. "Indeed, which means there's 4 other seal tags around the area to keep it in place. Jiraiya-sama taught you sealing too?" He questioned his student on his knowledge of Fuinjutsu. "Them and Oji-san, but we can discuss this later. Niji, can you tell us what's going on inside the cave?" He asked the Hyuga Jonin, who gave a small nod, closing his eyes and activating his Dijutsu. "Iakugan," he exclaimed as the veins around his eyes became apparent. "I see 3 signature in there, one being the Kazukiyage's and 2 other very powerful ones as well. The Kazukiage is still alive, but he appears to be getting very weak as the chakra is being drained from his body," Niji explained as Naruto was relieved that they weren't too late. "You have been trained by a Fuinjutsu master, Naruto, any ideas on how we handle this?" asked Kakashi, only having a brief knowledge of seals thanks to his late sensei. "Wait, I'm completely lost, will someone explain this to me?" said Ryoko, not being able to make sense of the situation, which was fair not being raised a ninja. "Calm down, Ryoko-chan, all it is a barrier surrounding the cave preventing us from getting into it. There are 5 seals like that one, he said, pointing around the area that have to be removed all at the same time in order to allow us to get in. But to answer Kakashi-sensei, the best plan of action is to have Niji find all the other seals and have Team Guy find them all. And though our radios have them be given the signal so all the seals can be removed at the same time, he answered. I see it's a way that the enemy can split up forces and leave it so only one would be able to enter the cave when the seal was removed. Simple yet effective strategy, commented Aika, thinking how advanced military could use a plan like this, although she's prefer to leave that to Lady Sito. We can't waste time, so let's get the plan underway, said Kakashi, as the teams took out their radios and attached around the necks, although Naruto was looking over Ryoko and Aika. You two ready for this? He asked them. This is a situation that may happen quite a bit when you're with me. If you think it's too dangerous, head back now before we remove the seal, he told them as both shook their heads at him. You bonehead, we aren't leaving you against guys that want to capture you. Besides, I've probably been in worse situations in my life anyway, said Ryoko, crossing her arms at Naruto. Well, I have not been in as many dangerous situations as Ryoko-sen. I agree that we can't leave you alone right now. You need not worry about us, Naruto-sama, we can protect ourselves quite well, said Aika, making Naruto smile. Meow, meow, came the words of Ryooki, still on Naruto's head, agreeing with the other two's sentiments. Hey Sakura, what's with Naruto and those girls there? I've never seen them around Konoha, asked Tenten, a little curious to the new girls. During his trip Naruto met his grandfather, she said, earning a small gasp from Tenten and Lee. When he was there Naruto trained heavily under him and Jiraiya-sama, but in the last few months he met those girls alongside another who we had to leave in Konoha. They are quite close to him already, but also very strong. Just before we got here Naruto managed to keep Itachi Uchiha on his toes and take out the copy of him very quickly, she explained. Really, wow, Naruto-kun's flames of must be burning so brightly if he is able to fight on par with an S-class nuke nin, said Lee, pumping his fist, thinking he should challenge Naruto to a spar after the mission. But that's not all, Naruto, he's changed a lot. He's not that same stupid dense knucklehead like 2 years ago, instead he's a mature adult who's responsible and strong. Kinda makes me think that maybe if I was a little nicer he would have been like that when we were a team. Looks like he's still miles ahead of me, Sakura said, rubbing the back of her neck. You're right, although he is still Naruto, he's grown in ways I never expected. Usually his chakra is all over the place inside his body, but now it's calm and controlled, yet still holding the same amount of power as it did before, commented Niji, remembering he had checked to see if it really was Naruto before. Not to mention his overall stature, I may not know him as well, but he holds himself differently now, almost like a trained master ninja. Just shows how he can surprise all of us, added Tenten, seeing the focused blue eyes that held warmth, kindness but also loyalty and calmness, like her father when he taught her about swordsmanship. Indeed, but I have found all the tags now, all we need is to find and remove them now. Guy-sensei, are you ready with your radio? Niji asked the spandex-wearing Jonin. Yes, Niji-kun, I am ready as ever. Each of our team will set off to find and remove these tags as quick as possible. If not, I will run 200 laps around the village on my thumbs when I get back, said Guy, setting his usual punishment for himself to get pumped up. Yash, and I will be right beside you as well, Guy-sensei, said Lee, giving the man his nice guy pose. Excellent, we will show the village our power of youth together, Lee, shouted Guy, and a few sweat drops seeing the two begin their usual banter, Niji and Tenten tuning out slightly after so much experience. One moment, Guy-sensei, said Naruto, calling the two before they activated their deadly Genjutsu scene. These tags are likely to activate some sort of booby trap when removed, so be cautious when you do so. Expect it to be something that will keep you busy while we deal with the two members inside, warned Naruto, thinking Akatsuki wouldn't take chances when it came to completing their mission. Thank you, Naruto-kun, I and my team will do our best to be vigilant. And good luck on your end, now Team Guy scatter, commanded Guy as the four rushed off with their radios at the ready and Niji informing them where they needed to go. Good call on warning them of a possible trap, Naruto, I might not have expected that myself, said Kakashi with his eye smile. My Oji-san taught me to expect traps in unlikely places during training. Believe me, the man may be old, but he could prank even me at times, said Naruto, shuddering and surprising Kakashi, thinking the number one prankster got pranked by his grandfather. Well, that's interesting, but how do we get rid of that little block once the seals are removed? He questioned, having an idea anyway. Probably Sakura can take it out with a super strength technique she learned from Bachan. I think I am lucky I haven't done anything to upset her, even if I may be able to match her in strength, said Naruto, grabbing the Tenchi-kan and twirling the blade in his hand. You never explained that blade, Naruto, where did you find it? Questioned Kakashi, a little curious of the mysterious blade Naruto had used to fight Itachi and himself. The blade is an heirloom once used by my brother Kakashi-san. The blade itself is powerful, yet very light, meaning in the hands of a skilled swordsman like Naruto-sama is deadly, said Aika, remembering seeing Naruto train with the blade once she had returned it to him. I know, speaking from first-hand experience, Naruto-kun is a damn good fighter with it. I only managed to best him slightly due to my extra strength, although he did manage to cut off my hand that night, Ryoko said, muttering the last part. Interesting, reminds me of the Nidame's Raijin blade. It clearly is a unique blade from what I can see, since it uses chakra to power it, Chiyo added, in remembering seeing the Nidame wielding the blade at one time in her life. Kakashi, we are approaching our tags, please get into position and await for us to reach ours and prepare to remove the tag, said Guy over the radio to Kakashi and the others. Looks like it's time. Be careful, Naruto, Sakura, Chiyo-sama, and you too, said Kakashi, hopping onto the boulder where the tag was placed and preparing to remove it. Sakura below took stance in preparation of removing the tag. We are in position, ready for your signal, called Guy over the radio. Okay, on 3. 1 2 3. He cried, ripping the tag off the boulder, as did the others in their positions. Immediately Sakura ran forward and released her chakra-powered punch on the large boulder, instantly turning it into rubble, the path in front of them clearing. Wow, for such a little girl she certainly delivers a mean right, commented Ryoko, while Ryooki hid inside of Naruto clothes for now to keep herself safe. Ryoko-chan, can you blast the statue behind Gaara? I'll catch him when he falls, asked Naruto as the woman smirked, collecting energy in both hands. With pleasure, I love blowing things up, smirked Ryoko, firing the ball of energy at the statue, missing the still in process of being drained Gaara, hitting the Jito statue, making the ceiling stop abruptly, causing the suspended Gaara to drop to the floor. Thankfully Naruto, as he said, caught him and used a clone to jump back to the other, before creating a more powerful clone to run off with the unconscious Kazuki. It all happened so fast that when the dust cleared of the rubble and the blast, the statue was gone, and Deidara and Sasori were left perplexed as to what had happened. Only when the dust cleared did the two members see the team from Konoha, and Deidara was getting Itachi's warning now. It had all happened so fast, and he, blonde-haired boy, had stopped the ceiling and rescued the Kazuki under their noses in a flash. The Iwanukenin then saw the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and saw the striking resemblance to Iwa's greatest enemy, the Yellow Flash, Minato Namikaze, his blood bubbling with rage, remembering how the one man had almost single-handed taken out so many of Iwa's forces. He may have left due to them not understanding his artistic talents, but had the same burning hatred for the man. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki, you certainly are not what we expected after hearing reports of you a few years ago, came the growly voice of Sasori still in his puppet body. He was shocked that their capture's container had been saved and was currently being taken away if he was correct in the sensing. Things change, I myself am no exception. Give up now and we'll make your deaths quick, said Naruto, taking stance, his blade by his side ready to charge, Ryoko taking defensive position on his right, Aika on his left. Yeah right, what do you take us for, freshly graduated genin, said Deidara, putting his hand that wasn't broken in his capturing of Gaara and his bag of clay, molding the shape with his freaky mouth hands. He spat it out and created a clay bird which he took seat upon. There's no way I'm giving myself up to someone who resembles that man. Besides, now I get the chance to show Itachi the power of my art by capturing his Jinchuriki for him. Deidara's bird took flight and headed out of the cave and in the direction of the escaping clone. Naruto immediately jumped back out of the cave, as did Ryoko and Kakashi. Naruto, we must be careful, if he manages to get your clone Gaara might get captured again, said Kakashi, as Naruto nodded and turned back to Aika. Look after Sakura and Chiyo-sama, Aika-chan, said Naruto, receiving a nod before she turned back to the puppeteer with Sakura and Chiyo. Naruto and the others quickly set off in pursuit of Deidara before he could catch up with the clone with Gaara. Said clone attempting to wake the unconscious Gaara, who had been drained a substantial amount of the Ichibi's chakra, but not the entire beast. I'm left with 2 girls and my grandmother. If you're going to do something, make it quick. I hate to be kept waking, said Sasori, his tail waving about threateningly. But 20 years and not even a hello to your grandmother, I thought you had more respect than that, Sasori, said Chiyo. Chiyo-sama, how does your grandson fight? I am not fully aware of his abilities, said Aika, maintaining her stance close to the other two. He is a prodigy in the rat of puppets, I should know, I trained him. Right now my grandson is actually inside of a puppet, resolving the weakness of the puppeteer technique. Young girl, beware of anything thrown at you, as it is likely to be covered in a deadly poison. Mind informing me of your own abilities, replied Chiyo. Yes, my body is very strong, quick, and I am also able to form barriers to protect myself and trap other. Chiyo-sama, and feel free to call me Aika. How do you think we should go about removing him from that puppet then? She asked. First I need to check something, Chiyo said, reaching into her sleeves and taking out several kunai that floated in the air before she sent them out at Sasori, who blocked them all with his tail. Although some of the kunai diverted to tear into the cloak of Sasori. DCH, no use hiding the truth, but you'll see this puppet has had slight adjustments, said Sasori, removing the remains of the cloak to show the full body of Sasori's puppet Haruko, which had an Oni-like mask on its back, the mouth being where the tail connected. The right arm as well seemed different from the left, being bulkier and several tubes installed into it. Here right, Haruko was a lot different last time I saw it, but I think I may have a way around that problem. Both of you come close, said Chiyo, as she began telling Sakura and Aika her plan, which involved Sakura being used as a puppet by Chiyo, Aika providing cover with her barriers. I believe I told you to not keep me waiting. If you continue to talk I might just get impatient, said Sasori, removing the cloth around Haruko's mouth that began shooting out several poison senbon at the three girls, Chiyo also having removed a pin from her hair, making it all fall down her face. Sakura and Chiyo quickly began weaving through the numerous senbon, each displaying a big amount of flexibility in evading the needles, which was a little surprising for someone Chiyo's age. Aika meanwhile was easily speeding away from the needles, creating minor barriers for her and the other two, but she now understood a little more of Naruto's world and just how dangerous it was. Not bad, but let's see what you do about this, said Sasori, lifting his bulkier arm that shot off toward the cylinders around it being released and opened, unleashing even more senbon on the three. But despite this the three were still avoiding all of the poisoned weapons. This is strange, I expect to be able to avoid the senbon, but the Konohinin and that other girl seem to be able to dodge them as if second nature. Although that girl with the Jinchuriki feels different, her chakra feels more natural than most other ninja I've come across, she might make an interesting puppet, Sasori thought to himself. When the rain of senbon ended, Chiyo put her plan into action. Sakura, Aika, go now, shouted the elder, flaring her hand for some reason. The two girls nodded, shooting forward toward the puppet master, whose tail shot out to pierce Sakura, only for the tail to stop right in front of her face, something appearing to restrain its movements. I see, so that's how the pink-haired girl evaded all my senbon chakra strings, and you attached them to Haruko's tail when you used those kunai before, said Sasori, figuring out what his grandmother had done. I'm surprised you could tell I used the bare minimum of chakra to make sure you wouldn't sense them, chuckled Chiyo before flaring her fingers, the strings a little more visible and now showing the connection between her and Sakura. But enough about that, I'd rather like to see your face now, grandson. Chiyo lifted her arm as Sakura jumped the strings, helping her gain a bit of air before she readied her fist, Aika dropping down by the side of her. The two powerful girls threw their punches, easily smashing through the body of the puppet and a figure jumping out of it before he himself was caught in the destruction. To think you would destroy Haruko. Although with 3 against 1 maybe it shouldn't surprise. Mind, tell me about the oddly dressed girl there, either of you. I'm sure our leader might be interested to hear what company our targets are keeping, asked Sasori, all 3 girls scowling, the eldest waiting for him to remove the cloth over his head. Well, guess I'll have to show my face then, he said, pulling the cloth from his face to reveal a youth red-headed face, making Chiyo's eyes widen, since Sasori didn't look like he had aged at all for the 20 years he'd been gone. What's wrong, Baba? You look like you've seen a ghost, said Sasori with a small smirk, enjoying the look on his grandmother's face. It can't be, how can you be so young after 20 years? Asked a shocked Chiyo. A lot can happen in 20 years, I am now able to be a true piece of art that will never fade with time. Now then, I think I will use this puppet to beat you, he said, pulling out a scroll and unraveling it to show the kanji for 3. This puppet was rather difficult to obtain, but it is very useful none the same, he said, as there was a puff of smoke, and from it a puppet that had black shaggy hair and a brown coat over the top appeared. No, it can't be, so this is what became of the Sandom Kazukiage all those years ago, he became a puppet for you to use. Said a slightly disgusted Chiyo, remembering how the third had disappeared 15 years ago and a body was never found. She now saw Sasori had constructed him into a human puppet. A human puppet is so much more useful than a regular puppet at time. The process of converting the body is also something I enjoy. It allows me to make them last forever, he said proudly as he took a stance, connecting his chakra strings to the new puppet. Chiyo-sama, do you mean to say that your grandson has turned a human into a puppet for his use in battle after killing him? Said a slightly fearful Aika. To her, life was precious like the great trees of her people, and for someone to take it and use their bodies like that truly shocked the princess's mind. Unfortunately, yes, Aika, and if I know my grandson, his skill with using a puppet on its own won't have diminished at all. We must be careful, he'll have no doubt coated any weapon it has with poison. Can we still count on you to support us? Said Chiyo, drawing out a pair of scrolls from her sleeves. Yes, you can, what he's done is horrible, and I swear to help you put an end to it. No one should ever be desecrated like that. It's just wrong, I swear on the Misaki name to stop this man, Aika proclaimed as Sakura stood next to her, agreeing with the sentiment. Please stop talking and get on with it, said Sasori, beginning his assault with his puppet, the right arm now armed with several blades, dripping with the poison, swing right at the 2 girls. Only for Aika to create a strong barrier that repelled the puppet back across the room. Oh, trust me, I will. You are part of the group after Naruto-sama's life, so my drive to be rid of you only increases. You were unlucky to have us as your opponent Sasori of the Red Sand, as you won't touch us, said Aiko, lowering the barrier to a neutral face of Sasori. We will see about that, he replied, putting his hands into a half seal. The end. Thanks for watching, also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.